there, ref. That's he got the ball. Good evening, Spurs fans all around the world, and welcome back to the Irish Hotspur. Your boy Dave is back after a couple of days off. What's all that background noise going on? Dermotron, I'm booting him out. He's distracting me right now. Can't have that. But guys, we are here for the Europa League game. Dermotron distracted me, put me off. We are here for that Europa League game against FERENCVAROS tonight. Of course, trying to build off the back of the 3-0 win against Karabag last time out. Let's see if we can make it 2 wins from 2. And if we win today, that will make it 5 on the bounce, which is good time for Spurs fans to be in after where we were only 4 or 5 games ago, which, you know, does show that there is a day in the life of a football is a week in football is a very short period of time, and things can change very, very quickly, which I'm absolutely buzzing about. We've plenty to talk about tonight. I cannot wait. And of course, it is your match day live. Is anyone hungry? Because we are in Budapest to devour FERENCVAROS tonight. Thank you to Europe for serving that one up. Let's go around and find out how all the boys are. Jacko, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm also, Ribsy pointed this out in the group chat, but clearly you and Brad Matthews have the same dad humor by the looks of things, with the fact that you guys both came up with that without even knowing each other, you know, at all, or knowing that Brad Matthews said that on the fan show. I'm looking forward to everyone's FERENCVAROS pronunciations, because on the channel predictions, no one even gave it an attempt. They just called it the team from Hungary, which really shows our mentality going into this game. I'm looking forward to it, Dave. Got Drew, got Ribsy, guys who wanted to come on, wanted to have a chat with us, which I think should be good vibes. And Europa League, my favorite competition in the world, the one I'm a big nerd about, and looking forward to hopefully some more Spurs winning.
Oh, hopefully a big win tonight. Hopefully we just get to see Spurs ball out. That is the plan tonight. Over to Ribsy. Ribsy, sir, how are you? Good to have you back.
Mate, I am fantastic. I'm super keen for this. And just like Jack, I love this competition. I don't even really know why. I think it's just I get to watch some teams that I typically don't. And it's just one of those, you know, those exciting things. I think Spurs played FERENCVAROS in 1955 was the last time that we matched up, or it may be since, but that's certainly one time we have played them. And that's a cool little piece of history, and we get to sit here and watch it, and we should just beat the ever-loving snot out of them as well. So that would be brilliant. So I'm looking forward to it, man. I mean, I'm trying to be humble. I'm trying to stay serious about it, because, like, as Spurs fans, we know we do go to Europe and do well, I won't say the S word quite yet. I think we got to go about 40 seconds before I'm allowed to say that. But yeah, we'll just we'll do our best, and we'll stay humble and all those good things. I'm looking forward to be honest.
It's very hard to stay humble in these sort of competitions as a Spurs fan. You know, we're the big boys beating up on little fans or on little teams, and I think that's why a lot of us have confidence in this Europa League, because we do expect to go deep in it. We do expect to get a good run. Yeah, look, they're Hungarian champions for whatever, last 4 or 5, maybe 6 years. But the reality is, I think they lost to Midtjylland in the Champions League qualifiers. You know, barely bet a team to get into the group stage here, only bet them on penalties. A team I've never heard of, to be honest with you. They sound like, you know, my local Sunday League team. And then I think they lost to Anderlecht as well. So no fear heading into this game, which I absolutely cannot wait. Like I said, I'm hungry. It's time for them to serve me up a buffet. Speaking of buffet, down to Drew Zilla. How are you keeping, sir? Good to have you on this, my man. I appreciate it. I tried to get you.
I'm not sure how to take that, Dave. I've been piling on the pounds since I've been here. I feel a bit like a buffet myself.
No, you appreciate
I certainly try to. But yeah, man, I'm really looking forward to it. Apparently there was some rumours swirling around, and I'm sure we'll get into it later, but as of about an hour ago, there was a murmuring that Mikey Moore was apparently about to make his European debut. So if that happens, I will be blown away. I don't see any reason. I mean, I said last night, 2-2 draw would be nice away from home. In Hungary, it's probably going to be pretty hostile. We don't have all the players that we could. So I would take that. But having said that, I'm going to contradict myself a little bit. There's still 3 points up for grabs. So while they're still up for grabs, that's the ones I want.
You don't have confidence in your boy Brennan Johnson to grab us a nice win here today? You know, you've been a big backer of him, and he's turned around his form. What's that, 4-4, Drew Zilly? You must feel vindicated.
I'm quietly happy about myself. I knew he had all the things to come good. last year was a rough ride for him, and he still managed 15 GA. So yeah, I'm sitting here quite nice, but I really want to see our kids progress. And even though he's a youngster himself, he's one of the more mature youngsters. If he has to, and I don't want the team to burn out. I'd rather we kept it slow and steady the whole way. So if they get 45 minutes each, I'll be happy with that. Werner can do 90. I mean, provided provided he's not awful, I would like to think you maybe give him the whole game and then split 45 between the other two. But we shall see, man. We shall see.
It's fair to say, I really do hope Mikey Moore does make his debut today. I've been a big believer in this guy, been calling for him to get his opportunity, and hopefully that is today. His little cameo off the bench against United. I love the confidence to cut in and unleash that shot, and hopefully, that confidence is showing, that he is good enough to play in this team, and he does deserve a start tonight. And over to Dermotron, despite his best to derail me at the very, very start, he is here back once again. How are you, Dermo?
I do apologise. I thought I muted myself, but I actually didn't. So I'm very, very sorry, and I apologise for anything you heard and any disruption I've brought to this channel. So I do apologise. But thanks for having me again, Dave. Really, Jack, great to be here. And great to be on with Drew and Ribsy as well. It's always a pleasure. Two legends of the Irish Hotspur as well. You do as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, mate. Thank you.
It's absolutely great to have you back, Dermo. I do really enjoy your contributions in and around match day, so keep coming back to us. Absolutely love it. So, guys, let's get into it. Let's tell everybody everything they need to know. Then let's welcome some people into the comments, and let's discuss about this great club of ours. Of course, we are taking the game to Budapest in Hungary at the Group AMA Arena. Kickoff is at 5:45, so I guess you guys are probably sitting there, why these guys so early, and live so early? Well, that's why, because we do have an early kickoff tonight, 5:45 UK time. Referee is Igor Pajac, or Jakac. I'll let you pronounce these two names. They're right up your alley.
Dang, I thought that was actually pretty good, Dave. I'm not even sure if I'll be able to do the next one very well. I'm going to say Mario Zebec, or is Mario Zebek, but very good, Dave. I was intimidated by your first guess there. That was good.
No, I appreciate it. Look, I throw myself in head first. Once you make it sound good and say it with confidence, you normally get away with it. But two guys from Croatia, Jack will definitely be keeping an eye on them. And then if you want to watch the game tonight in the UK and Ireland, it's on TNT Sports 2. And in the USA, it's on Paramount Plus. So, guys, that's everything you need to know. And then in terms of injuries, of course, Destiny Adoji is out with his quad, Son out with his thigh, Richarlison out with his calf, Udabar out with the hamstring, Dragsson suspended. And, I'll give everybody a quick point if anyone can name one player that plays for Ferencvaros. To be honest with you, Jack did make these images, and he took my leap of faith last week with Karabag. You don't need to know any names or injuries. It really doesn't matter. But anyone know any players for Ferencvaros?
Yeah, Bob.
Everyone's silent, so I take that as a no.
I would say Barnabas Varga, and who else is there? Mohamed Abu Fani. And I think maybe there's a Christian Ramirez as well, but I don't know how up to date this squad list is that I'm looking at in front of me.
So Drew doing his homework. But look, no names that we should really be afraid of whatsoever. No. So exciting game ahead. I do hope, although I do have a question a little bit later on, some of the awful defeats we've had away from home over the last 3 seasons in Europe, and it does not make for good reading. But let's welcome some people in first. We've got Connor in the house. Big up. Good to see you, Connor. Hopefully you're keeping well. We've got Eddie the Eagle from Down Under. Says, come on, you Spurs. 3 more points and another step forward to a trophy. Another game for Johnson to score. 5 for 5. Let's go, boys. Absolutely love that. Did anyone get down to the bookies and put the Johnson 10 and 10 bet on? Let me know. We've got Berbatos halftime smoke. Good to see you, Dan. Says, match day, boys. It is. And we are super excited, my man. We have Shem Tam, afternoon, Jack and Dave. Hope you're both well and ready for another great performance from the team. Very worried about how the defensive back four will look, though. To be honest with you, I'm not really too worried. It doesn't really matter what back four. You could put me in at centre back. I don't think I'll be testing in behind too often this evening. Just give me the ball. Let me spray it around. I think that's probably going to be their only job today, Shem Tam. We've got Martin Knightsbridge says, afternoon, boys, from a sunny Spain. Let's get another good win under our belts tonight. Yeah, and he's had to come back to land, actually, because it's winter's kicking in, you know, so he's had to get off his boat and start joining the rest of us peasants in reality. So I appreciate that, Martin, and good to see you, my man. Hopefully you're keeping well. Captain Birdseye there. Big up, Martin Knightsbridge. Oh, and he's copping on a bit in his fantasy draft as well, which is good to see with Martin. He's making a few changes. We've got James Murphy. Big up, lads. Another 3-0 win today for the hat-trick. Come on, you Spurs. Dom Solanke might get a hat-trick. You never know. Good to see you in the house, though. We've got Nick Lazy 8. Good to see you. He says, what a panel. Good to see you, Nick. Hopefully you're keeping well, my man. And keep that jersey collection behind Jack is very nice. And Nick's a great provider of that. Big up, Nick. We've got Just a Harmless Potato. Good afternoon, all. Big up, Dave, Jack, Drew, and Ribsy. Guess he doesn't like you, Dermo. He's left you out, but big up, Just a Harmless Potato. Hopefully you're keeping well, sir. I think that's a typo. Oh, no, sorry. He does. He comes in a bit later on. He says, big up, Dermot. He realised fair play. We've got Joseph. Big up, Dave, Jack, and panel. Need to keep the winning run going. Hope to see the academy players like Moore, Dorrington, etc. get a run. Come on, you Spurs. I haven't really seen anything over the last 3 days, you know, since that United result. But I did see it, if I'm correct, Dante Casanova travelled with the squad and one or two others. You know, he was seen boarding the plane with them. Now, I know there was Luca Gunter and Tyrese Hall last week. You know, it could be just the case that they're going out there for this sort of match day experience, you know, getting used to like the travelling and, you know, the times and stuff like that. And whether we'll see them or not is a different story. I know we can name up to 12 subs. Last week, we only named 10, which was interesting. Seems like Postecoglou won't really name them unless there is a chance of them getting any game time whatsoever. Dorrington will be an interesting one because a lot of people are sleeping on him. Postecoglou actually last year, when he was talking about Donnelly and Dorrington, he went out his way to name check Dorrington extra than he did Donnelly. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, whether he has a trick up his sleeve with Dorrington. Of course, he is coming back from that long hamstring surgery that he had, the long layoff from that. But let's wait and see. You know, I think a lot of people are sleeping in on this guy, and he's a very good passer of the ball, and that's what gives him even better opportunity to get into this Postecoglou backline somewhere along it. Who else do we have? We have Eddie Y of Oz. I'm nervous when the B team plays. Do you know what? Coventry, Carback, my nerves are sort of gone with that now, to be brutally honest. I think, you know, I was proven right. The problem was a lot of them players in years gone by, you know, we're playing some youngsters combined with players on the periphery, and they're going out there and getting wins over the line. So, you know, different mentality is what I would say, Eddie. Alberto says, yes, lads, early kickoff this evening. Bergval to shine on, or more. How do you like it? Look, absolutely love that song if he scores tonight. I will be belting that one out. Bergval, be interesting to see whether Postecoglou makes up to him after pulling him off early against Carabag. Just give me 1 second. Jacob Anderson will come back and give this a crack, my man. We've got Rick Ross says, come on, you Spurs. Good to see you. We also have the leftovers. Facts, I thought he was Bale. What happened? Big up, my man. Good to see you. Got Stevie Fraser. Big up, everyone. Good to see you, Stevie. As always, he says, remember to like good people of the chat. Really appreciate that. Darth Hotspur. Yes, peeps. Big up, all. Come on, you Spurs. Great to see you. We've got Richie Recovery and Reacts. Johnson and Solanke have to start now showing their form. Why give Werner game time when he's not our player but no end product and cost the club in money and points every game? More over Werner. Look, that was my biggest concern with Werner coming back in here again this summer, that he was going to block up that pathway a little bit, you know, take minutes off Werner that he could be playing. The thing is with Werner, he had a much better performance against Man United, but the problem still persists in terms of the end product. Now, you had 2 one-on-ones, and I'm sorry, to do the exact same thing twice is absolutely brain dead. You know, when the keeper's that far off his goals, what you don't do is hit it straight at him, first of all. Second of all, when he's that far off his line, he can't recover. All you got to do is take a bit of James Maddison last week, dink it over him, and there's your goal. You know, to do the exact same thing twice is unforgivable. And look, I do think a lot of it is confidence related with Timo Werner, but his confidence has been shot for 3 to 4 years now. I think it's well and truly in the mud to really sort of try and pull him out of this spiral, to be brutally honest. I'm going to far as to say damaged goods. Probably a bit harsh maybe this early, but you know, I just know fate that the guy's going to find the back of the net anytime he's in on goal, to be brutally honest. And Ribsy's in here. Stan Sports for Australia. Appreciate that, my man. Derek Hutchinson, big up Dave, Jack, Ribsy, Dermot, and Drew Zillick. Come on, you Spurs. Good to see you, my man. We also have Brecon. We also have Jeff Tottenham as well from Perth. Always good to see you, along with Eddie. Well, lads, hope to see more and a couple of youngsters. We all do, my man. Good to see you. We got Spurs, the Dan list in here. Roy Park, the Fresher, listing Hines. Who else have we got? We've got Cam Tinley, Jack Bloom as well. And then we also have Tottenham Titbits and DJ Samuel as well. Good to see you, my man. Hopefully you're keeping well. First of all, I mean, have none of you guys got work or anything else to be doing at this time in the day, so really appreciate so many of you tuning in. That just goes to show how committed you are to this club, and I absolutely love it. So appreciate you all. And then we've got this from Jacob Anderson, and he says, what's up, guys? Hoping for a 4-0 win today. I want to see Moore get a decent amount of game time and put a goal away. I think Spurs are favourites for Europa. Just have to keep the form. Jack, we'll let you have a stab at this first, and then I'll come in off the back of it.
Well, thank you, Jacob, for 32 months of tolerating us and 32 months as an elite member of tolerating us. We're very, very thankful for that. And with Mikey Moore, I think it was Drew or it was Ribsy just before we started recording here, and they did say that maybe a certain Mikey Moore could be lining up for a start today, Jacob. So get ready for some celebrations, maybe you warning the neighbors in case of some louder screams than usual, type of thing. Because I think we would have all lost our minds had he scored against Manchester United. I think Dave and I would have probably canceled the stream had that happened. So I think we're all very hopeful of Mikey Moore getting some decent amount of game time, like you say, in this one. And we all know if he had the chances that Timo Werner had, he probably would have put both of them away, knowing his quality and knowing how composed he is for only being 17 years of age. And I'm a big Europa League fan, and I think Spurs, with the fact that there aren't going to be any teams knocked down from the Champions League or anything like that, the teams that we're seeing in the league table or the teams we're seeing in this group phase are the teams you're going to get. And so I think Spurs should have a good chance and a good shot of going very far into this tournament. And hopefully Ange Postecoglou realizes that as well. I'm pretty sure he does. And I'm really hopeful of a long Europa League run. I think that would be a ton of fun for this fan base.
And I think with the new format, I think it's even more, ideal for us, to be able to get out of this group. I think we've got a very kind draw for the most of it. I think we should at least get, guaranteed 5 wins out of the 8, and then you win the others, you go out, you avoid the last 16, or you avoid the last 32 and you go straight into the last 16, which is very, very ideal for Tottenham Hotspur, which would be absolutely brilliant. And look, we're on a high right now. I did say after that Coventry game, it could be a blessing in disguise. Sometimes all you need is that win to really sort of kick on and start motoring. And it seems like that's the case. And hopefully, we can go on a good run. I think what we need now is a good run between now and I would say Christmas. And the reason why I say that is because we can really build up some momentum behind us. I think you can start getting a lot of fans excited. You can climb up that league table. You can get deep in the Europa League. You can almost guarantee your safety out of the group there. And I think it'll put us in good stead come the business end of the season, come into the new year, which is exactly what we want, Jacob Anderson. But look, Wexford have opened a new boat route straight into the Basque region, which is where the Europa League final will be held. Almost feels like the Lord done that on purpose just to help me get there. So hopefully I'll see you there, Jacob. Big yourself up, my man, and really appreciate the support, brother. Really do. And then also, we've got someone saying where to watch. Let us know where you're from, and we'll tell you where you can watch it, my man. Big yourself up. But big up, Jacob. Really do appreciate the support. And 36 months. Hopefully, it's only another 12 months so we can celebrate a trophy together. That would be absolutely fantastic. But guys, let's kick it off, and we'll start with you, Drew, and work our way backwards. Some would say that Spurs fans are getting too carried away with themselves after the Man United victory. Many have claimed that the Man United team was bound to get walloped by someone. Are we reading too much into the recent good form, and performances, or should we wait a bit longer before we start to get carried away? Because some would argue, look at the fixtures we've played. Karabag, Brentford you would expect to beat. Poor United team. Coventry you would expect to beat. Are Spurs fans getting too carried away right now?
I don't think so. I think we're entitled to enjoy our wins when we can get them. I mean, Old Trafford's never been an easy place for us, regardless of the team. And it would have just been like Eric 10 games to have done something and somehow got a result. Like they were, 2-0 down against Nottingham Forest, and somehow he wins 3-2 last year. So, no, I mean, I think we're perfectly entitled to. We've had turgid football, the last few years, and just come in. He's finally been able to kind of put his gloss on the team. I think he's finally got the players playing like he wants them to play. They're starting to really understand it. Go into Old Trafford with an intimidating atmosphere and the waterfall. I think we did really, really well. I think we're entitled to take that away. It's an isolated game. It's fantastic. the flip side is, if we'd have lost, everyone would have said typical Spurs. They never win at Old Trafford. So what? You can't win for losing, or you can't lose for winning. Do you know what I mean? But no, I think we're perfectly entitled to ride this wave.
And look, with me, I always say enjoy the victories when they come, because things can change very, very quickly. So for me, I will be happy clapping it away, and I do like to see Spurs fans overreact to the wins on Twitter and all the socials. I think it's absolutely hilarious, and I think that's when you're at your best. So keep it up. But Dermo, where do you stand with it, my man?
Look, I'm still basking in it. It's only our 5th win there in the whole Premier League history, which is quite an amazing stat, really. I mean, and it shows how good Man United have been over that period of time. But we should enjoy it. We've beaten Man United at Old Trafford. It's Man United, and for me, it's a case of shoving it right down their throat. It's only Tottenham. Well, we can turn that around. It's only Man United, so don't worry, lads. And I think the fans have a right to get excited. It's all what football's all about. If we were sitting here moping and down after win, why not get excited? Why not get a bit delusional? Why not think of heavy heights? We can win the league. We can win the Europa League. That's what football brings you. It brings you belief. It brings you happiness, and it brings you joy. And this is what football is all about. So bring it on. I can't wait for tonight. I can't wait for Saturday. I just love being a Spurs fan. Good, the bad, the ugly. Okay, we get down when we lose, but when we win, by God, I'm buzzing. So come on, let's have more of these days, because it was a great day Sunday.
Oh, it was an absolutely fantastic victory up there. Look, in my lifetime, even we've put in some good performances up there. United have always found a way, and it looked like for a period they might get back into the game, but we held our nerve and we absolutely dominated them. I've never seen a Man United team being dominated like that at Old Trafford in my lifetime. It doesn't matter how poor they've been. We absolutely railroaded them. They all wanted to tap out. Ten Hag handed his resignation in at half-time. The fans couldn't wait to get out of there. Even the stadium was ready to crumble with the heavy downpour. And we absolutely steamrolled the pitch. Apparently, they're relaying the turf after us. We absolutely demoralized them. And I haven't seen that happen to United in so long. And to be honest with you, I'm very, very grateful for it. When I grew up, I used to take stick off United fans. Used to call us the Spuds, turnips, etc., etc. Very funny, but as a Spurs fan who wants the glory they had, and that they got to celebrate, it does leave you thinking in your room at night time. It does leave you angry at times. And, for us to turn the tides on them and for them to start going backwards, and we signaled the start of that and highlighted their problems to the whole world, I'm absolutely buzzing. My time would come and we pulled their pants down at Old Trafford. We turned them from the Red Devils into Jesus Christ that night. I absolutely cannot wait, and hopefully it keeps going. But Ribsy, Dermo is getting too carried away though, my man. I mean, where are you at with all the Spurs fans right now in terms of, what we're seeing, the reactions all across social?
Yeah, I mean, look, hey, I spoke in the fan show about delusional Manchester fans, so I won't go back into that. But when we're talking about those 5 wins that we had there over the Premier League era, we've got 2 close ones. I think they were both 2-1. We've got 2 3-0s and 1 6-1. So when we go up there and win, more often than not, we beat the hell out of them. So look, they're not the Red Devils. They're the slapped asses, man, as far as I'm concerned.
No, 100%. It's absolutely great victory to get. Jack, where are you at with it? Of course, you've done the Twitter reacts. I've sort of watched it back. It was good. I've also seen a lot on Twitter that probably hasn't been able to go into the Twitter reacts as well. It's been actually a joy for once. I mean, where are you at? You've seen more of the reaction than anybody, I suppose.
Yeah, I could see why maybe some people that are neutrals might think that Spurs could be getting a little bit too ahead of themselves, after beating Manchester United. But I think as Spurs fans ourselves, I think we are totally entitled to be celebrating this week and just enjoy the fact that we can slap up United in that sort of fashion. And also, only so many teams, at least in my memory, have left the stands that empty before the final whistle. It felt like there were more stewards in some of the sections of the Old Trafford Stadium than there were actually fans left over in the final minutes of the game. So that really does show that it was one of the better performances any away team has ever had over at Old Trafford, regardless of whether you rate Ten Hag or not, or Eric 10 Games is the great nickname that Drew Zilla came up with. But with Man United, I think they were due a walloping or a whooping, as they've been kind of nicknamed recently. But it felt like one team had to be good enough in order to do that. And we were a good enough team to be able to give them that whooping or that walloping. And I'm happy that we were. And I'm looking forward to seeing Spurs bounce from that and see if we can build on it. It's not a trophy. It's not anything that, we can, technically look towards or, point at physically. But I think it is one of the best Manchester United wins that we'll probably ever have in our young or maybe, experienced Spurs lifetimes. And I think we'll be happy to take that and happy to get some memories from it. But let's hope that it's a huge building block, a huge gain for momentum. And it actually is just more one of those kind of bits of fuel that this team, as well as Ange Postecoglou, can use to actually go and win something very physical and very tangible this season. But come on, I mean, you have to enjoy it as a Spurs fan. If you can't enjoy slapping up United like that, especially during this period where they really are down at their worst, yeah, I'm not sure if you're going to be the best person at parties. To be perfectly honest, not someone I'd want to invite to a party if you can't enjoy a win like that.
But I do think, Jack, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the big thing to take away from that game is, it shows how good this project can be. It shows how effective this style of football, this tactics, this philosophy that everyone's been going mad about, how good it can be up against the big sort of six teams, in terms of pushing them back and how much we can dominate them sort of games if everybody's at it. And hopefully a signal of intent going forward. You can never snuff your nose up at a 3-0 win and not say that's a statement of intent for your football club at Old Trafford, because it is. So I definitely, for one, I'm enjoying it. Jacob Anderson, I'll take this one. He says, I think if Kulu and Madison play that way all season, then Spurs can challenge for every trophy. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, Dave, but I plan on crossing the pond to see Spurs play before too long. Well, myself and Jack will be going to the game against Crystal Palace towards the back end of the campaign. If you can get a ticket, feel free to make a trip over and come and indulge in some Tottenham football with us, my man. That would be absolutely brilliant. In terms of Kulu and Madison, look, I think Madison is absolutely key. Right now, he's a player full of confidence. He's doing all the right things. And maybe not being picked in the England squad is probably a blessing in disguise, because hopefully, it prolongs that sort of form, that motivation that he's got in him right now, for a little bit longer. Hopefully that is the case. In terms of Kulusevski, look, some would say, I've seen it in the guy. I knew he had it in him. And long may it continue. He's sensational against Man United. One thing I love about Kulu is players are very quick to put the ball into him and look for the return pass off him when he's back to goal, and they trust him to do it. The size of him, what a couple of images from that United game, him just getting on the ball, turning midfield, gliding forward, and you've just players, sliding in after him. It was like a scene out of a World War movie. It was absolutely great to see, people clutching that fresh air behind them, and hopefully the two of these can kicking on. I would argue with Bentancur behind him. I think he's a very, very good midfield tree, which we will talk about at some point today. And maybe Ange is starting to stumble across his best midfield, and that's why we're starting to see maybe the upturn in results. Long may it continue, Jacob Anderson. Beat yourself up. Good to see you in the house, sir. But guys, in terms of today's game, I want to know sort of what we're expecting. We made relatively easy work of carrier bags, despite the red card. Ferencvaros should be a similar sort of quality to Karabag, but our away record from home is pretty shocking. I'm just going to read it out there now. We, in our last 3 European campaigns, including away defeats to Milan, Sporting Lisbon, NS Mora, Vitesse Arnhem, Paços de Ferreira, Dynamo Zagreb, Antwerp, and a 3-3 draw with Lask. So, our away form in Europe over the last few campaigns is absolutely shocking, and it does show that we can be turned over at any opportunity. But I want to know what you guys are expecting from today's game against Ferencvaros. It's sort of, we're heading into the unknown, but also, how do we avoid, these types of results that I've called out? How does Ange maybe avoid them where other managers haven't? And we'll start with you, Jack, and work our way around the other way this time.
Yeah, Dave, I need to take a shower after listening to some
feels
of those,
dirty, doesn't it?
some of those away,
All right.
some of those away results. I think it will be different this time because, first of all, Ange Postecoglou plays a very different style of play to that of the previous managers. The previous managers, even when we would go to a Vitesse or when we would go to a Paços de Ferreira, there's still that element of kind of being cautious and being pragmatic and still being not really that gung-ho with the tactics or anything. And then I think that led to it being a cagey game. And when you're coming up against a team that has absolutely nothing to lose, like it's just the opportunity to get a big scalp and, basically, take out a big European giant. And, for them, that would be like an even bigger, some of these teams that we've lost to, that's an even bigger win than what 3-0 to Manchester United was for us, right? That's like some of the best wins that they'll ever have in their history, some of these sides that we have lost to. So you have to, I think, take that into consideration, that the players and the fan base are going into it really hopeful and really, praying that they can actually see a good performance, but then B, maybe take a big scalp and see if they can enjoy that, for a long time and take that as one of the big trophies for their season. And so it feels like maybe the team, as well as the managers in the past, didn't really fully realize that, maybe sleptwalk into the game a little bit, thinking that it should be easy work. But when you come up against teams like that, they are going to work their tail off, and they are going to basically work their socks off to try to outwork you, to basically make the game physical, make it uncomfortable. And it felt like we just weren't prepared for that in previous fixtures. And hopefully Ange can prepare us for that. But I do think the style of play is going to be a lot more overwhelming to some of these sides than maybe what we had under Antonio Conte, or under Jose, or under a Nuno Espirito Santo. So that's my hope, Dave. And maybe the last little point on it is maybe the mistake that Ange could avoid is sometimes in the team selection. Again, I think Conte, Jose, a lot of them, they would make changes to the squad without really any sense to it, just kind of threw in a whole new 11, or they wouldn't really think about maybe the team dynamics or the team chemistry in that starting 11 that they put out there. They just sort of expected, what, I put out a team of solid players, they should be able to get the job done. And then they wouldn't. And then you kind of look back at the team selection and think maybe we were setting ourselves up for some trouble here if we weren't going in with the right mentality. So I think a lot of those things, if Ange can avoid those kind of mistakes that previous managers have made, then I think he should be able to avoid any potential embarrassment this European campaign. But the Europa League comes with embarrassment. Maybe that's why maybe Ribsy and other people and I like it. There are these teams that do end up kind of shocking you and end up throwing some crazy results out there. So Spurs have been on the end of them in the past.
No, look, 100%. But I think, look, where I sort of disagree with you is I do think managers like Jose and Conte should have been able to turn around and make 11 changes for them games, and for them to turn around. Like, we have players on 80, 90 grand a week. You're talking about full international players representing their country, going out there against the likes of Enes Moura, Vitesse. Come on, and they're getting turned over by them. Patros de Ferreira, that should never happen. And I feel like, Conte and Jose should be in their right to make changes. And if we want to compete across all four fronts, we have to get used to the idea at Tottenham that managers are going to have to make changes. They are going to have to rest people and preserve game time. You hear players already coming out moaning about the amount of games they're playing. And one thing at Tottenham we've had to do in years gone by is rely on one set 11. That can't continue. But Ribsy, it does look like it's starting to change a little. Ange did make changes for Coventry. We got over the line. He made changes for Karabag, despite the nervousness in the Spurs fans. We got over the line. What has changed between now and in previous years, would you say? Is it simply just down to squad and mentality and the different players that we're using? Because, you make the argument last year against Fulham in the Carabao Cup, Ange relied on some of the old guard that did get turned over easy in Europe. Games gone by, and it happened again. Whereas this year, he's not relying on anywhere near as much as them. And we're starting to see sort of different results. Is it down to how Ange manages it? What do you think the change has been?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that when you mention those teams in Europe, those ones that we've had trouble with, they didn't turn us over. We turned ourselves over. With our wage bill and our quality of player, there's never been an excuse for us drawing or losing against those types of teams. There just never has. And for some of the guys that we're playing against there, it's the biggest games of their lives they're going to have is playing against a team like Tottenham Hotspur. And we just need to be stronger, and we need to be calmer. And we need to have more respect for the other team, but we also need to have more respect for ourselves. There's no excuse for a team like ours to lose to teams like that. There just isn't. And I mentioned this in the fan show, but their manager previously managed AZ, who has played against Ange's Celtic. So he knows, at least to some degree, what he's facing. So, we can't go into this half-cocked. I'm sure that we're not. But I can't help but feel that in that Coventry game, a lot of those players, because they were brought into the team for the first time in the season, they felt as though that they were being put into the team because this was going to be a walkover. And you know, when you've got that mentality going into a match, sometimes it means that you can't shake that funk that it's just going to be easy. And when it's not easy, when they're playing up to their opposition and they're trying to beat you, you've got to actually play. And I think Karabag did us a bit of a favor because they didn't play up to us. They were terrible. They couldn't hit anything. So, and they had a few chances where they played and they got some shots in on us, and they were nowhere near the goal. They were just, it's the kind of team that decided that they were defeated before they even showed up, you know. But we're playing away today in Hungary, and it's not going to be the same sort of thing. They're going to be playing in front of their fans, and they're going to be playing like Coventry played. So we can't underestimate them. We need to know what they're about, but we also need to know what we're about and play our game. Don't let them dictate the terms.
No, 100%. I hear you. One thing I will say, though, is if they're intimidated by a stadium in Hungary that has about 20,000 people in it, I mean, then we have absolutely no hope of going on to win this Europa League whatsoever. Look, they might cause us one or two problems, but for me, in order not to get turned over in these games, though, it's just about turning up the right mentality. You know, you should automatically be turning up to that stadium knowing this is their cup final. If they scalp us today, then players are going to live off that and be legends of these clubs for the next, you know, for as long as they're alive. So they should already realize that and just be prepared to outrun them. And then you're automatically better on the ball. And that's why you're at Tottenham. They're at FERENCVAROS in their career. You know, so just go out there and be confident and let it shine. But Dermo, where are you at with it? Because some people are saying, look, you know, you got to respect them. The bookies are saying this is going to be a closer game than what many think. Do you think, you know, the bookies' odds are sort of slashed on Tottenham because of our away form in recent years gone by? And do you think, you know, we can expect anything different today? Or
look, I think it is because of our away form. But if you look back through them games, I think them players have to take responsibility for them performances. You can't just pin it on Jose or Conte. I think them players just did not respect who was in front of them. They thought they had a God-given right to win that game. And games like FC Mora and these teams that we should have beaten, you don't have a God-given right to win a football match. You've got to earn it. And them players turn up them nights with a God-given right. We're better than you. All we've got to do is turn up. That doesn't work like that. And you have to respect the opposition somewhere. It doesn't matter who you're playing. It doesn't matter playing Accrington Stanley or you're playing Man United. You've got to respect what's in front of you. You've got to respect who you're playing, but also play to the top of your ability because they're going to be up for it tonight. They're playing in front of their home fans. They're going to make it a hostile environment. And Hungary, I've done a little bit of research into this. Hungary stadiums are hostile environments. And I think it was Ben Davis said in one of the defeats, we couldn't win because it was too hostile.
Yeah, the Anaheim, I'll never forgive him.
Yeah. And I don't think you would get that under Ange. I think Ange would go out there and say, look, I don't care if you're playing in front of 5 people or 55,000 people. You go out there and you play to the best of your ability. You show them respect, but you show them who's boss. And we've got to go out there with the attitude of this is the same attitude we had against Man United. And I think that that's the only way we can win this game. If we go out with any other less than that, then we're going to struggle because the other team would then sense they can smell blood. And if they smell blood, their fans are going to get up for it. They're going to make it more hostile. And we're going to whittle away like we've done before. But I don't think that would happen under Ange. I think under Conte and Mourinho and Nuno, I think it was more of the players didn't respect the manager or they just didn't respect the side. They got told, you can walk over these lads, no problem. And then it's down for you've lost before you even left the dressing room. So I do feel you do have to respect every opponent you play. You've got to treat them as you would treat it any Premier League game. But our way form is woeful. But I think that would change from tonight. I really do.
Hopefully, I really do hope so. Just David Clark says the team won 6 out of 6 games this season and only lost to Anderlecht 2-1. So although I think we will win, it's never a cakewalk away from home. Look, I fully understand what you're saying. But if we can go up to Old Trafford and beat them 3-0, I'm sorry. If we can't go away to Hungary and go and beat them 3 or 4-0 and play them off the park, then what are we actually doing here? We may as well go and support a championship team or a League One team or something like that. At the end of the day, I take what you're saying, but these guys lost to Midtjylland, you know, in the Champions League qualifying. Okay, Midtjylland on their day can be a difficult opponent, but you should be beating them. They scraped past the Europa League playoff to get into here to beat Borac Banja Luka on penalties. I mean, someone let me know if you've ever heard of them, because I haven't. They barely bet them. And then, of course, they lost 2-1 to Anderlecht. And Anderlecht are nowhere near the European giants or anywhere near hold the name in European football that they once did when I was growing up. You know, the last 20 years, Anderlecht have been in the abyss of European football. I get what you're saying, but I'm sorry. We need to have a better mentality at Tottenham. We shouldn't be fearful of these games. We should be going out there expecting to win. And that's the way I see it. Just quickly as well, before we let in Drew Zilli, David Clark was also saying about, you know, it's different for the player. It's difficult for the players to get up to speed and, you know, find that sort of connection with each other and stuff, which 100% I get what you're saying. But, you know, they do train with each other during the week. You know, before this game leading up to it, they would know who's in the lineup and they'd be working on patterns of playing, training with each other. Now, of course, it's a different intensity when you take it to a game. But I'm sorry, you know, 10, 15 minutes into the game, you know, if you've got good communicators out there, people that are talking to each other, them little kinks and problems should be ironed out within 10, 15 minutes, and you should go on and put in somewhat of a decent standard. But, the more, and this is the big thing, the more they win games like this when they're trusted, the more games they're going to get to play with each other, which means then you won't have these problems because they can build up that rapport. And that is where our biggest problem has been down the years. We've been handed some absolute gimmies and we haven't took them, you know, and we've lost them games, and then them players haven't been able to go on and, you know, get a run of games together because we've been knocked out at the very first sight. So, you know, the more games these guys play together, the more them kinks should get ironed out. We should see a cohesive squad no matter what rotations we make. But Drew, I mean, what sort of game are you expecting today? Because Rooty Toot makes another good point. He says Carabag had 40 minutes to warm up because it took 2.5 hours to get to from Stratford to N17. Ferencvaros are going to have a lot longer to warm up. Some people are saying, look, it's going to be a difficult away game when you look at our away form across Europe. And look, that extends to the FA Cup, League Cup as well. Most of the games we get drawn away, we end up going out. So what sort of game are you expecting tonight, Drew?
Well, just to touch on what people have said, because I sort of agree with some of it and disagree with others. I actually feel like Ange is putting together a better squad than Mourinho or Conte were ever given, either, you know, whether you want to say it was the opportunity to, or whether they had the opportunity and just screwed it up. I mean, my honest thoughts on Conte is I think he's a bit of a fraud. I think he had one good season in Milan and won it, but that was in a weekend Serie A league, if you ask me, that year. I think Mourinho has basically been fed squad where everywhere else he's been. He was fed squad after squad of, you know, at least 15, 16 very good first team players. And because he was at teams where they were winning constantly, i.e. Chelsea, Real Madrid, Inter Milan, he got players just like Manchester City do now. He got very good players to get on board with a system where, you know, you're not going to start every week. You're going to get maybe 30, 40 games, but you're going to win a couple of trophies. So I think it's got a lot to do with the fact that over those last few years of being in Europe, the team has been extremely disjointed. Like it was never really the first 11. There were 2 or 3 or 4 scattered in, and then you just had this disjointed back four. And I just don't think in the last few years we've ever really had a dynamic team that knew exactly what they were doing. So now that Ange has had time to put his team together, and it looks like, you know, he's putting in a system where everybody knows where everybody should be. And I think what he's also trying to do is he's trying to mix enough of the first and second team together that it feels more like one squad. And, you know, as I say, I don't think that's something that the other two did particularly well. As far as the game today, I don't see any reason with the players that we're going to have out there, even though there's another rumour here that possibly says he's going to give Van der Ven a rest and Archie Gray is going to be the centre back, and Ben Davies is going to be left back with Romero and Porro. So we've got enough quality that we should be able to just pass the ball around. We've got enough big team players in there that should just be able to calm everybody down. There's no, I said 2-2 and I'd be happy with it after the fact, but there isn't any reason why we can't go there and win 2 or 3-0, put our foot on the ball, play our football. If we pop the ball around like we know we can, and we get 250, 300 passes in the first half, they're going to be dead on their feet. I don't care who they are. Like, this is, like you say, a team in Hungary that, bless them, 20,000 strong stadium. Fantastic. I'm very happy for you. But we're Tottenham Hotspur. Like, we are going to come to your place and we're going to put our label on you. And that's what Ange's teams do.
100%. And, I think, what was it? Ange actually played these in the 1920, I think, Europa League. I think he bet them at home and bet them away. So, he has form of beating teams like this. And I think you're absolutely spot on. I do think Ange does have a better squad than a Jose, than a Conte to work with. In terms of technical wise, I don't think he's got any players in the dressing room that are a real problem, that maybe don't want to be here or are having arguments with the club over money and stuff like that. I think he's got a very sort of harmonious squad with everyone pushing in the right direction. And I do think with a Jose, with a Conte, especially Nuno, he famously labelled the rest of them the B squad, which probably alienates a lot of them. But again, it comes down to, you're going to sit there and sop about it, or you're going to use that as motivation to get into the A squad. Most of them sopped about it. I think now Ange's probably, expressed to them, look, you've all got your part to play this season. We need every single one of you to turn up. You're going to get your opportunities. It's going to be about, 15 to 20 games there for everybody, at least, right across the board, right across the roster. Be ready for when your opportunity comes around. And hopefully that stands the test of time for us, throughout this competition. Let's wait and see. Big up Lily Wright Rose. Great to see you. 2J as well. Good to see you. Just quickly, he says, we are 2 or 3 injuries away from messing up our whole form again. I heard Ange just changed the medical tactics. There's definitely been changes in the medical department for sure. Geoff Scott, who had about, I think, a 30-year reign in the Spurs medical department, is gone. That's a huge change. 2 or 3 injuries away from the form. I can see what you're saying. I'm just hoping that by the time that happens, we've got some players that are playing in these games up to speed so that they can sort of just slot in where we need. What I would say is I do think the back line could cause us a couple of problems, at some point. But big up, 2J. Good to see you. But sorry, Drew, go on.
Yeah, no, I was just going back to, I think, again, part of the reason when we drafted players in before under Jose, under Conte, I genuinely think it was a little bit down to bad coaching, because when you're in a squad like that, you should be able to rotate players in and out, and everybody should know the job that everybody's doing. And I just don't think we had that. I think that's one of the reasons Kane was so frustrated. I think he put on a great face and he said the right things and said it was great to work under Mourinho and said it was great to work under Conte. But I genuinely, other than that small spell where we finally got into Champions League and beat that lot down the road, that little sprint that we did to get there, other than that, I don't recall a core nucleus of a team that all looked like they were on the same page since probably even the Champions League final, the season before that, actually, because it all kind of started falling apart then. And this whole, great rebuild or painful rebuild has become excruciating because they didn't realize what they needed to do. And they were putting paper, plaster over the cracks. And now we're finally doing a bit of a reset. Everyone's on the same page. The nucleus of the squad all know what they're doing. They're all young. They've bought into it. And I think that's the difference that you're seeing. Ange Postecoglou is here for Tottenham to try and make Tottenham better. Jose and Antonio Conte, whatever you think of them, good or bad, they were there for themselves because they thought that they could do something with the tools that were there, and ultimately they couldn't.
Oh, 100%. There was definitely that ego about them that they could be the first ones to turn Tottenham into this force, 100%. But, you know, maybe their ways and methods going about it, there was less room for scope for some of the mediocre players we had at the time, or less tolerance for them. Whereas, you know, Ange has worked with them to a certain extent. Now they're all gone. Now he's got players, you know, that he fully believes in, fully trusts in, that they can all play system. And hopefully we see the benefits of that. Guys, let's keep it moving, because I do want to have a discussion around Ange Postecoglou, you know, because start of the season, what was it, first 4 or 5 games, there's a lot of people saying, get him out of this football club, he's useless. You were seeing stats appearing on why, you know, it was falling apart. We win a couple of games. Now you've seen all the other stats on the flip side of, you know, why we need to keep Ange in the job, you know, how great he is, you know, how good the system, the tactics are. So I just sort of want to gauge where the Spurs fan base is at. But before we do, guys, if everybody could smash that like button, it'd be absolutely grateful. Really helps out any of the channels you're watching, not even just us, but any channel you're watching. Really helps, you know, boost them in the algorithm and send it out to more people, which then, you know, helps the channel even further. So guys, if you could do that, that would be fantastic. Why not smash the subscribe button? If you are new, feel free to get any questions in that you do want us to answer. You know, feel free to get in any super chats if that's what you want to do, help support and get questions in, or grab yourself a membership and become a part of this great community. And guys, we are nearly there, you know, nearly there to be able to sustain the NordVPN sponsorship for another couple of months at least. We really need a massive help, another massive push from you guys. So the link is still around if any of you guys want to hop on that NordVPN and grab one for yourself, save yourself a bit of money. But look, let's get into it. Let's start with the Ange Postecoglou. I think what I'm seeing is, I do think, you know, at CDM, I think there is a bit more instructions there for him to sit back in and not get up as far with the play onto the edge of the box, maybe like they were doing in previous, games under Ange Postecoglou. I do think Adoji's role has changed a little, where he is more instructed to go on the outside, which frees up that space for Maddison and Son to operate in. Apart from that, there's been no change in the high line. There's been no change in too much else either. But Jack, let's start with you, because you were one that had a bit of mixed feelings there not so long ago after the commentary game. You know, you sort of, it was just wrecking your head, you know, just when you were about Ange out, Tottenham pull a win out of the bag, and then we go on and hit the ground, put in some performances like we have. Where are you at with Ange Postecoglou right now? Is he the right guy then to keep taking us forward, Jack? Do you think things are starting to click in terms of his tactics and his message?
Yeah, you know, my head was certainly bobbling and wobbling after that Coventry City game. I just felt all over the place with whether, you know, I still had my faith in Ange or not. Like, I felt like I did, but I just was starting to get really sick and tired of just seeing results not come our way. I do feel like with Ange, we had a conversation last night with Drew, which was very interesting, where we were kind of talking about the short termism that we often look at things, you know, in football, where you do kind of go by it week by week, game by game. And when you kind of take it with that mentality, you do end up being a bit volatile, a bit kind of all up and down and roller coaster-ish with how you're kind of analyzing things. Where if you do try to take a step back, maybe look at it with more of a bird's eye view, you can then kind of see that with every new manager that is trying to basically change everything at the football club. And that's the case with Ange Postecoglou. He's trying to change everything from the style of play to the belief inside the club, you know, that they can actually win things, that we are big enough to push for stuff, to also the youth academy now being given more of an emphasis and more of a responsibility to come through. Everything has been changing at Spurs. And with that, there will come some maybe bumpy periods sometimes where things don't look right. Things are starting to maybe fall apart, or at least on the surface, it seems to look that way. And then you do kind of end up kind of as a fan starting to have your faith and maybe your loyalty kind of questioned, or at least pushed to its limits to a degree. And I think I was kind of at that place with Ange Postecoglou, and I did waver a little bit there in that Coventry City game. But since then, I really have seen, I think, a turning point in this team. I think we are seeing, I think, the football that we probably saw in the first 10 games under Ange Postecoglou, but it seems more matured now. It seems far more cohesive. There's more of an emphasis on certain things that maybe in the past that we did have little question marks about, like kind of the ability for teams to counterattack us. Felt like that Manchester United game, we were really good at suffocating them. But then anytime that there was a counterattack, saw guys like Brendan Johnson, like busting a lung, you know, to get backwards, you know, to try to help out Pedro Porro. You saw Timo Werner, anytime that Destiny Udogie got too far forward, running back to help out, you know, his fullback. Bentancur mopping things up, almost like a third center back, in front of Mickey Van de Ven and Romero. Everything about that Man United performance, and I understand it's only Man United, which is just so funny to say, but it was a very mature performance from Spurs, and I think even the Brentford one was also a very mature performance from us. And then even the Karabag game was an example of what Ange Postecoglou ball is capable of, where you go down to 10 men against, in my opinion, still a decent European outfit in Karabag, who were very good last year. We made pretty easy work of them for the most part. And the fact that you can't even win a game 3-0 with 10 men, I don't see many managers capable of pulling that off nowadays. Most times when you go down to 10 men, it ends up being a basket case of a game where either you're just holding on to a 1-0 win, or you're holding on to a draw, or maybe you feel like you could sneak a win from like some set pieces or something like that. It's always ridiculous in any time it goes to 10 men, but it felt like, again, the game for the most part was pretty much in control under Ange. So these past few games, I've been entertained by the football. It's probably some of the best football I've ever seen at Tottenham Hotspur. But then I'm also getting, Dave, at the same time, a bit of what, because I'm in my Sean Dyche, Thomas Frank, Duncan Ferguson era of, conservatism and pragmatism. I am seeing a lot more kind of cohesion and maturity and control in games. We're dominating games. We're playing really good football, but it feels like there's a lot more control that's been happening in the past few games, where I don't see much of a chance of the opposition really scoring against us. Or even if they do, it looks like we're still going to put 5, 6, 7 past them. And I'm seeing that even with Hansi Flick right now at Bayern Munich, or at Barcelona. He did that before at Bayern Munich, where he just blew away teams like 6-0, 7-0. And even if you did concede a goal, you felt like the game was still very much in your control, still very much yours to win. And I'm getting that vibe from Ange, and I couldn't be happier. So my head was bobbling, Dave. I even have a little Sue Bird bobblehead right next to me, and I definitely was wavering, but now I'm back on the Ange train. Hopefully he can let me back on.
No, look, I'll speak to him. I'll throw him a text later on and ask. He thinks you're a good guy. I'm so sure he'll let you back on, Jacko. But no, look, it's good to see so many people get back behind the manager, because although we're at testing times, and look, I fully understand it. I don't think it was short-termism to a large degree, because it was off the back of from October last year all the way through to the first 4 or 5 games of the season. I think the speculation and a lot of the criticisms or concerns people had, I think, were very well sort of justified. But, I didn't waver in my belief. I just didn't believe sacking a manager and bringing in another new guy would solve the problems. I thought you'd only get another new manager bounce. So I'm glad that we have now gone on this little run to ease the pressure on Postecoglou, because now over the international break, I can sit there, have a ham and cheese sandwich and smoke a Cuban cigar. I'm not worried about my manager. Why, Man United fans will be sitting there refreshing Fabrizio Romano every 2 minutes, worried about what's going on with their football club. So it's a refreshing place to be in, actually, come this October international break compared to years gone by. So that's absolutely refreshing. Just before we crack on, though, Kevin Ree has gifted 20 Irish Hotspur memberships. My God, what an absolute gift to everybody, and really appreciate the generosity, my man. Really, really do. I don't know what we've done to deserve that, but the lucky recipients are Mac Elwood, Michael Gregorio, Leon MP or Leon M96 Coys, Ian S, Funny Shit, Slips 123, STZ02, Herbie Hurts Feelings, Spencer Stewart, Pig Toucher, whatever you're into, Don Quixote DL, SMIT Giovanni, Futility 1912, and Ben Kaufman, Steve Combo, Immortal Worm, Potato Stew, Chris Foster, Total Spurs, Joseph O'Hanlon. You guys have all been lucky recipients of Kevin's very, very generous nature. So, guys, please make sure you thank him very, very much for that, and really appreciate that, Kevin Ree. Very, very nice of you, my man. And it's a great way, to help support the channel, but also gift to others as well. So, Kevin, really, really do appreciate that, my brother. Thank you so much. Jack, anything you want to say to Kevin?
Thank you very much, Kevin. That's very, very, very generous. And so hopefully people take advantage of that. Please come on the fan show whenever the next one is. Should be Monday, but as always, we let you know if things change. So please come on the next fan show. Take advantage of his generosity. Send in those fan cams as well after the game. If we're celebrating a big win against FERENCVAROS, but also want to say that Kevin is actually my favorite name out there. I've never met a bad Kevin in my life. I felt like every Kevin I've run into is a very nice person and always has that sort of happy clapper energy, if you will. I'm not sure you're a happy clapper, Kevin, but I've always met a lot of very funny, very lighthearted, very good Kevins in my life. It's my favorite name. It's just one of those names that puts a smile on my face. So big up to you, Kevin.
No, big up, Kevin. I think you're exposing a few fetishes in the chat there as well. You know that some of them names. Big up, though, Kevin. Really appreciated that. I needed that laugh today as well. So thank you very much for that. I'm not sure whether Ribsy's, in the middle of a hurricane or something. Like, he's just gone. No warning, no nothing. Let's wait and see if he can get back to us. Oh, here he is. But big up, Kevin, my man. Really do appreciate the support. Very, very generous. Then we have Artist T and we have Paul, which we'll get back to in just a couple of moments' time. But I do, this is all driving me mad. I have to have it the same. I'm a bit, what's that word? I can't think of it now, but there's a word for it. OCD, maybe. But Ribsy, on to Ange Postecoglou. Look, as an Australian, I'm pretty sure it was hard to sit back there, watch a lot of the criticisms aimed at the guy, considering what he can do. You've seen firsthand what he can do and what he can deliver. Where are you at with Ange Postecoglou right now? Still the right guy to bring this club forward? Still the right guy to deliver trophies at Tottenham?
Look, absolutely. Look, I totally get it. When you're looking at the caliber of manager that we've had, maybe skipping Nuno, having managers in like Mourinho and Conte, who are massively well known across Europe, and bringing in a guy who's, claim to fame as far as English fans are concerned is winning the Scottish League with the best team in the league. I totally get it. I get it why people weren't keen on him, but this guy, as people are, look, we're not going to go down the same road over and over again, but like, this is the guy who's continuously underestimated, and he preys on that. And that's why in press conferences, when he says, I'm not changing anything and I'm stubborn, I'm doing it my way, he's telling you that because he wants you to underestimate him. He preys on that. So when you watch his football, it's not as simple as he makes it sound like it is, because that's his stick. His stick is, I'm just copying Pep, mate. I'm just mucking around. I can't believe I'm even here. I'm robbing a living every day. This guy, he's a good manager. He might not be the best manager in the world, and he never will be, but he's a damn good manager. He's better than and he's not going to toot his own horn. He's not going to tell you how fabulous he is. He's just going to do his thing, and most of what he does is going to be behind the scenes, and he's not going to tell you a lick of it, and that's the way he is. And that's, and like, I'm not going to say all Australians are like that, because a lot of Australians are complete blowhards, but he's the type that I respect, which is the kind of guy that will let people assume that he's
stupid and naive.
Exactly. And when people call him naive, they're playing into his hands, not the other way around.
And look, it's one thing, even when he went into Scotland, I mean, the audacity of them guys, sort of turning their nose up at Ange Postecoglou, and their football's been in the doldrums for quite some time. He rocked up there, and again, they sort of dismissed him there. And, at the start, they had questions and that, but he very, very quickly delivered. And I do think that Tottenham Hotspur was always going to take that little bit longer to get things going, because, you've a lot more of a bigger club, and you have a lot more personnel to try and fight for exactly what you need. But one thing I do like about Ange, I think, which was refreshing, he took a lot of the responsibility on himself rather than, lay the blame at other people's doors, which he could have very easily done. It's something that Jose Mourinho done, something that Conte done to a large degree. And look, I don't mind it. I think, fair is fair. But, if you want to keep your job, you have to try your best, especially in tough times, to not try and pull people out and start blaming them. And I think Ange held his nerve, held his balls. I think he's coming out the other end of it now, which is good to see. But Dermot, we have one from here, from Lokeman. He says, Ange seems to be adapting. And there's a few people in the chat that have said that, there seems to be a few adaptations to the tactics. I'd argue, I don't think they're adaptations. I think they're tweaks he's made to certain positional changes. But, when people were talking about adaptations, they were talking about dropping the line back. I don't think he's done that. They were, about the gung-ho attacking football. I don't think he's sort of, alleviated in that to any degree. So what do you think has led to this maybe turnaround? And, are you still behind Ange 100%? No flip-flopping like you do on Johnson, though, Dermo.
I don't flip-flop, Dave. I just tell it how it is. And look, I'm big enough to look. On Johnson very quick. I know. I don't flip-flop. Never have. Never will. Look, I've been Ange in from the very beginning because I know what he done up at Celtic, and I followed him a little bit when in Japan as well. And I really looked into his career, and when he came to Celtic, Celtic were a mess. They were worse than where Spurs were, to be fair, when Ange rocked up. And he transformed that club from top to bottom in a matter of 2 years. And I don't care if people say the Scottish League is a shit league. You have to beat what's in front of you up there. You have to beat Rangers twice or 4 times a year. You have to go away and beat Motherwell and Aberdeen and Hearts. There's no easy games up there. Ange went up there, done the double in his first season, done the treble in his last season. And he remolded Celtic to be one of the most exciting teams to watch up there in decades. He upped that league. And Ange did that himself. He's come to Spurs. He's rejuvenated Spurs into the team that we love, to the team that we adore. And what I love about Ange is Arthur Rowe was taught by Puskas taught Arthur Rowe, push and run. Ange Ange played under Puskas in Australia. It's like it's come full circle. And this is what I love about Ange. He doesn't take any bullshit. He will come up and say, right, mate, I take it on the chin. It's my team. I'm the leader of this team. I'm going to take responsibility. It's not down to the players. It's down to me to put it right. How many other managers have we heard that down to Tottenham during the years? First, Mourinho does. Throws players under the bus. Even Pochettino never took responsibility sometimes for the bad performances. Oh, it was this, it was that. He's man enough to say, look, it's my mistake. I made the mistakes. I didn't prepare them right for this game. I own that. I will make sure they're prepared for the next game. And it's his honesty and it's his lovable love of football. And he's genuine. When you watch a press conference, you can't help feeling motivated. He brings, it's very few sports people that motivate everyone else, that motivate other people around them. And Ange does that. I watch a press conference like preparing for my shows. He makes me want to go 20% better to do better on my channel. And that's after watching Ange Postecoglou. He has that effect on people. And I always say, he's our Arthur Rowe, he's our Bill Nick, he's our Keith Bergshaw rolled into one. And this is what we've got. We've got the reincarnation of Bill Nicholson, in my view. I've said it from day one, and I will say it. I say it again today. I would either be proven by the sword or I die by the sword. I would stand by that. He's our Bill Nick. He's going to take us to the promised land. And that is how I feel. That's how much I love Ange Postecoglou, how much I think he will succeed at Tottenham, because he's playing an updated version of the push and run side of the 50-51 side. Not everyone's going to agree with that. Not everyone's probably going to laugh what I've just said. I don't care. It's how I feel. It's how I see it through my own Spurs eyes. We are now playing an updated version of the 50-51 side, and that's down to Ange Postecoglou. Long may he reign. Long live the king. The king is still here.
Oh, absolutely love that from Dermot Sean. Ange Postecoglou be in contact, get you to be his PR man after that. But look, hopefully he can have that long reign. And I do have a comment there, someone, talking about that long reign, which I'm going to bring up to Drew Zilla. But Dr. Johnny D, look, I think it's important, if we're going to talk about when things aren't going well, I think it's very important just to equally talk about when things are going well. At the end of the day, he's Tottenham Hotspur manager, and he's going to get spoken about, So I think, if we bring him up to talk about him, and people criticize him. I think it's only fair to give them the opportunity to then sit here and praise them. I don't see a problem with it at all, Johnny, to be brutally honest with you, my man. But big yourself up. You're entitled to your opinion, sir. We've got this from Sports Lover, says, look how long Ferguson was given. He's rebuilding the club inside out.
4 years.
You have to rebuild the squad, which is still 2 to 3 windows away, getting Solanke to fit in, etc. But then on the flip side, Scott says, don't want to be negative, guys, but just we haven't beat anyone of any quality apart from Liverpool last season. Fans need to calm down. What I would say, though, is if we did lose to United, people are using that as the litmus test to maybe get ready to say, look, he's got to go now. You got to sack him. So I think if you're going to use it for that sort of barometer, I think, you've also got to flip it. If you go and beat United unexpected, I think you've got to sit back and go, hang on. That was a shock result. Didn't expect that. Maybe is there something else to look at? So I do understand to a degree what you're saying. They are in a mess in that, Scott, but I don't think you can have it both ways. If you're going to use that as the barometer to sack him and say he's not good enough, I think you got to use it as the barometer to say, look, maybe take another look at this. But on to you, Drew, sports lover. Could Ange, look, I think, the Ferguson sort of days are gone in football. No one's going to get that long. But, the sentiment is there. Do you think Ange could be the right guy to rebuild Tottenham and deliver success to a large degree?
I'd like to think so. I think he's great. I think he's great. We talked on the fan show last night about him a little bit, and I think he was again, I don't want to say hamstrung because I'm sure 3 of our players are going to go off with hamstring injuries tonight. But it was just one of those things where I brought it up several times. We only had 4 or 5 of our first team players play regularly with each other last year. There were so many people out, so many people injured. He was trying to lay a table, and he didn't have all the cutlery, and he didn't have all of the, the equipment he needed. And now he's finally setting the table, and we're reaping the benefits. You don't, and I don't care what sort of level, go to what Dermo said, I don't care what level you're at, you've still got to be at the peak of that level to do what he's done in the countries that he's done it in. And people can turn around in the chat or online or in social media and say, oh, he's only been here, he's only been there. Well, I would challenge any one of you guys. I'm sure there's a few of you that have done it, but I would challenge anyone else to go to another country, learn another language, get a job, become the best at that job, and then go to another country and then learn that job, and then become the best. It takes, I mean, and you're doing it within a framework. Like, it's not completely different every time, but the fact that he's managing to, with small pieces, sometimes big pieces, he seems to be growing into the role. Nothing seems to be phasing him. It didn't look like it was phasing him. It never has. I don't think he particularly likes press conferences, because I don't think he likes repetitive questions, and I don't think he likes having to try and justify himself all the time. But there's nothing about him that I don't admire, respect, and appreciate. The way he talks to people, the way he analyzes things, the analogies that he comes up with, the little quips. He's got, sometimes you watch those press conferences and there are times where, they're eating out of the palm of his hand. They may not realize it, but he's taking them down a pathway. And I've got nothing but respect for the guy. I mean, I'm a little bit too young for Bill, Nick, and Birkinshaw. I mean, obviously, I know the history, but he's in terms of the galvanization of a team, he's as close to my Terry Venables as I think I'll get. And also, one thing I will say, and I think I've said it on another show, I think if Postecoglou had the prime Tottenham team that Pochettino had, I think we'd be sitting on a couple of trophies by now.
Ooh. Do you know what? Someone else said that to me, but maybe it was you that said that to me before, but someone else has said that to me before, and it's something I think about. If he did have the likes of Harry Kane in his team, Son, in his prime and stuff like that, I think there's a good argument for it, for sure.
Yeah, man. I mean, if he'd have had Kyle Walker, Danny Rose, Vertonghen, Alderweireld, then you got Wanyama or Moussa Dembele, and then a prime Dele, a prime Eriksen, prime Son with Kane, and the way that Ange is able to mold a squad, and I'll go back to this because he does mold squads. Everywhere else he's been, he doesn't have a first 11. I think he's even said it himself that the way that his teams play, he can't play a first 11. That's why you find that you get, and I know people will go on and say, oh, his substitutions aren't right. He hasn't had the pieces to do that from last season. He's just now getting those pieces together. And I think you'll start to see more around the 60, 65, 70-minute mark. You'll start to see more of that rotation as the players become fitter and get more used to it. But no, like, I hold him in very, very high regard. And I mean, I think it would really, really have to take a turn for it to kind of fall apart now. I think with the addition of Solanke and what that guy does for our front line, which was so disjointed last year. Yeah. Sonny's a wonderful player and he's a great finisher. He's not a number 9. We all know that. Richarlison, like him or hate him.
I don't think we do. Most people were telling me last year he was a number 9, Drew Zilla,
He's absolutely not. He's a left winger and he's one of the best in the world when he's on his game. So I'm with you, Jack, on that one. I'm not having it. And yeah, like I say, Richarlison, there's obviously some stuff going on there. I feel bad for the guy. I mean, they're saying he's out with a calf injury, but it sounded to me on that the last presser, I think it's more a mental thing, and I think he's being given time off for something, which, is fair enough. We all need it. But what Solanke does is he presses right away and he gives the midfield so much space, so much more space to work with. And we're finding that players are now, 10, 12 yards away from each other as opposed to 5 or 6. I think somebody mentioned that last night. Like, you're seeing a better spread of the play. Maddison looks like he's got more room to do stuff. And I think, this is just a testament to Ange not giving up on the way that he wants to play his football.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's the biggest thing, because a manager has to come in with that self-belief, that self-assurance that what they do is work in order for everybody else to buy into it. And it seems like now that people, that the players are starting to buy into it. Don't get me wrong. I think for a period, there's probably a bit of confusion. And when you're not picking up results, you do lose that bit of buy-in, that bit of belief. But, sometimes all you need is that one game. Fair play to Jed Spence. He sparked this comeback. And now I think you listen to Kulu's interviews during the week talking about believing in the system, believing in the tactics, when you're winning games. And I think that's a huge part of it. And you can see now, you're seeing players starting to do what they're asked to do with a lot more conviction rather than the hesitancy that was maybe once there before where they were questioning things. But I do think that comes about having a much younger squad to believe in. When you've got older players like we had last year that filled out the periphery, a lot of them players have been coached by top managers in the game. They would have had the attitude. Ange Postecoglou, who's this guy? He's telling me to rip up the rule book, everything that I've been taught in my life to get here. And he's asking me to do things that I just wouldn't be asked to do when I was growing up. Goes against everything I've been taught. And I think, he probably lost a lot of them players to a degree, but a lot, they lost a lot of the fan support, them players. So I was glad to see the back of them. Now he's got a lot younger players who, you look at Bergvall, the only coaching he's had is in Sweden. And I'm not dismissing the coaching in Sweden. But my point is, he hasn't been tainted he hasn't had big managers like Jose Mourinho, like Conte, for instance. So anything that he's going to be asked to do, he's going to go out there and carry it out without any questions. And I think that's big for Ange Postecoglou over the course of this season. And look, don't get me wrong, I think he's listened to a certain degree, set pieces were a huge issue. They're starting to try and navigate a way around that. Look, we're not the biggest of teams, so we're always going to have trouble going competing man for man. But what they are doing is trying to block up that goal. So anything that does go on goal, there's someone there to get a body in the way. So they're sort of trying to, learn lessons there. You look at Edozie especially. He's going more on the outside rather than constantly making them inverted runs. I think is a massive help, which is freeing up the likes of Maddison, when he's out there, giving them a lot more space to operate in, because Edozie going on the outside pulls players with them, and they can't ignore that run because he's also a threat, which then leaves Son and Maddison playing in the areas you want them to. Kulusevski coming into midfield has been an absolute masterstroke. Finally nailing down his position. It's clear that Ange liked him and thinks he's a good player, but we've seen him play left wing, right wing, up front, centre mid. We're finally starting to find the guy's position now, and I think everyone's starting to become a lot more settled, and I think now we're starting to go in the right direction. Long may it continue. And also the change at CDM where he gets them to sit in a bit more rather than getting up with the attacking phase, which frees Van de Ven and Romero to get out wide to cover them balls out down the channels, which is something Pochettino used to employ. So in fairness to Postecoglou, he is adapting a little bit. I think maybe he's realised, okay, there are slight adaptations I have to make in this league, but fair play to him. He hasn't been too peak-headed or stubborn to be able to sort of sit there and do it. I think in terms of sticking by and sticking to the principles and his beliefs, I think he's been absolutely spot on to do. I don't think any manager should come in and
sorry, can I ask you a question? Do you think part of the reason, because obviously everyone was getting on with set pieces, we're conceding from set pieces. Now that the back four have played together a little, or back five have played together more, now that you've got Solanke coming and dropping back and doing what Harry Kane used to do, I mean, is there not something to be said for, rather than us just being bad at set pieces, defending, it's just a case of we're being coached to be better at set piece defending? Like, I think there's an element to that. I think the fact that he's now got the pieces, and that piece is Solanke, he's a big lad, and just having that extra body in there and just having that extra 6 months of coaching, here's what you do, here's where you go. I think Vicario becoming a bit bigger and a bit stronger, and then kind of clocking and not letting him get crowded out. I still think there's a little bit of an issue there, but I think it's getting better. And I think, again, I think that's got a lot to do with Ange and a lot to do with the coaching.
100%. When you look at Harry Kane, you know, and this is one thing that you sort of didn't realize when we were selling him. He cleared nearly everything from set pieces for us under Conte and Jose Mourinho. Richarlison, when he had that game stint under Ange Postecoglou, he made a lot of clearances and was picking up free kicks, which alleviated a lot of that pressure. Look, I still go by my opinion that, you know, set pieces is more about pride. You know, you don't want to be beaten to that ball. You want to be able to be the one to clear that. And I do think in modern day game, with the way it's going, it's not as physical. And I think you're losing maybe some of that where players just, let him go. Hopefully I get away with it, which you don't at set pieces, not at this level when most other teams have coaches, you know, it's designed for set pieces. And all they're doing all week is sitting there studying you from set pieces just alone, trying to come up with a way to find your weaknesses and stuff like that. Better coaching. I'm not quite so sure about the better coaching, to be brutally honest. I think it was better coaching. They'd trust, you know, having their guys one-on-one. I think, look, a lot of Tottenham's problem is we've got one of the smallest squads in the Premier League. We don't have a lot of big players, which leaves us at a disadvantage. So there's other ways you have to go around it. But look, it's improving and long may it continue. And even Vicario, I nearly fell off my chair there the other day. I seen him come out and collect the ball and then catch it. I nearly fell off my chair. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. You know, usually that guy comes two-fist and puts it straight out for a shot on the edge of the box. So when he came out and caught it, and that's another thing I've said with Vicario, he can alleviate so much pressure, because what's not right is when clubs are putting the ball in on top of the 6-yard box, it means they know your goalkeeper's weak in terms of commanding that. The 6-yard box has always been the goalkeeper's, and it's up to him, and he can alleviate a lot of pressure by coming and claiming a lot of them that come in there. I think he's far too happy to sit behind the block, as they call it, rather than actually force his way through it or around it to come and claim that ball. But look, good to see that, you know, most people are now starting to get back on board with Ange Postecoglou. I know Johnny didn't really like the conversation, but Johnny, in these pre-match build-ups, we do sort of tend to take topics from the previous game, include them into this, and then also go into sort of what we want to see in terms of the team selection and that building up into today's game. So hopefully, you know, you can understand that, my man, as much as maybe you didn't like that conversation, but big yourself up. We've got this from Artist T. Apologies it took me so long to get to Artist T, but I did feel like it was important to have that conversation around Ange Postecoglou.
I have to drop off. I'm sorry. I've got my missus' family's just turned up earlier. They put it in private chat, so I just have to drop off. I do apologise.
Big up, Dermo.
Take care, bro. Have a good one, Dermo.
Soon, lad.
Sorry.
Have a good one. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Dermotron's going to be a big miss. What did he say? Family turned up.
He pulled a hammy. That's what happened. He pulled a hamstring, so he had to come off.
Big up Dermotron. But Artist T says, and I will plug Dermot at the end for you guys to get over and smash the subscribe there. Artist T says people need to stop with this narrative of Timo and his finishing is due to low confidence. That's copium. This is just who he is as a player all time. Look, I do think a lot of it is confidence related, in terms of when you're low in confidence, you tend to think a lot more about your opportunities. When you're played through, you tend to get nervous rather than excited, you know. And I think, you know, there's a massive difference. Like when Harry Kane's played through, he's a killer. He knows he's going to score one-on-one. He's so confident. When Timo Werner gets through, I think he almost wishes it was someone else in his position bearing down on the goalkeeper for a large part. And I do think, you know, a lot of it is to do with confidence in terms of, especially them chances against Man United. I mean, he's going to get no better chances in games like that twice one-on-one with Onana. So I do think a lot of that is confidence related. But I also agree with you. Even if he was full of confidence, do I think he's the answer for Tottenham Hotspur? No, I don't. I don't think he's good enough in general. He's all-round play in terms of having that trickery to get on the ball and beat a low-block team. It's well and good sitting here saying he's going to be a player that comes off the bench for large parts of the season. Fine. There will be a part of the season where he's going to start games, and you know, because of injuries and stuff like that. Does he have the answer to have the technique and the skill and the brain to beat a low block team? I'm not quite so sure.
If he can, sorry, Dave.
Go on. No, go on.
I was going to say, if he can recreate anything like his Leipzig days, which I know was a little while ago, 2016 to 2020. I mean, this is just appearances and goals. 78 goals in 127 appearances. I mean, that's better than, I think, oh, my maths is terrible, but what's that? One every other two, something like that? Like, if he could get anywhere, what's that?
The problem is we're in 2024 now, and that's 4 years ago.
No, I get it. I get it. But there's got to be something, like, to be able to do that pretty regularly for 4 years. I mean, obviously something's happened in the last 4 years where maybe it's a crisis of confidence, and maybe just, it's so low. Maybe he's just playing because he's playing the different system. But I think, I mean, people were really quick to write off Brennan Johnson. I'm not about to throw my hat on Timo Werner. I'm not about to do that.
What I will say, Drew,
you know, if he could get, basically, without having to pay a transfer fee, if we could get another 15 GA from him this year and, you know, win a cup with him doing something in the team for us, that's not bad. We can get rid of him next year and actually maybe buy a decent left winger. But, like, you know, it's not a bad deal.
The problem I have with he's lucky to get 15 minutes out of me, you know, at this moment in time, let alone 15 G and A. So I do hear what you're saying, but look, I think the difference between Timo Werner and Brennan Johnson is Johnson always had time on his side. Timo Werner's in his prime. You know, you're not really going to teach him anything or get him to be able to do anything he hasn't really shown before. Whereas Brennan Johnson, you know, he's got until he's 26, 27 to sort of really negate the issues. He's got time on his side. But, you know, at a big club like that, you're not going to get that much time. You have to sort of show it. But I think that's the big difference in terms of them two there. I
just respect the fact that he gets up off the bench and does it week after week, knowing that 100%. You know 50, 60,000 people are going to get on his back. So
you know what?
Fair play to the guy.
I'm absolutely dreading even being named on the bench at this point because I don't want to be put out there because I know what I'm going to get, and it takes massive, you know, respect for him to put himself out there in them situations and sort of not let it get on top of him, not let it get the best of him, but also not show the emotion. I've seen many players at some point, you know, break down and show the emotion. He hasn't shown any, so fair play to him, and that does deserve a bit of respect. But if he scores and assists goals more, I'd respect him a hell of a lot more. So, Timo, if you're listening, please try and do that for me. That would be brilliant. We've got this from when the Spurs go marching in. Member for 14 months. I'm fully behind Ange. He frustrates me at times, but what manager doesn't? I can see him being here for a while. He's building the foundations for success, but tonight will be another win in the bag. 6-0. I really do hope so, Paul. Jack, did you share your sentiments?
I hope so as well. The 6-0, you know, maybe feels like Paul has a bit of maybe what Dermatron is on if he's gone for a 6-0 there. It seems like Paul's going into it very confident here. And yes, like I think I've had my frustrations with Ange, but again, with that conversation that I had with Drew last night, as well as just kind of the recent performances that I've analyzed, I think I've just come to realize that, you know, with Spurs, and again, this was also someone mentioned on the fan show, might have been Ribsy, where it's like we don't have actually, as Spurs fans, that much experience with a manager staying for a long time. We're actually quite used to having a manager only be here for a year or two. So it seems like we judge them based off what they can do inside a year or two, instead of just giving them the benefit of the doubt that things will eventually come good, that things will like turn around and the project will eventually make sense. Because we have so little experience with any longevity of any kind, we just tend to make our minds up quite quickly on whether the guy is actually good enough for the job, whether the project is making sense, whether things are headed in the right direction, when in fact it does take more than a season, if not even longer. I don't even know how long it takes because, again, we have no experience with this type of thing, with when it comes good and when we start to see the signs of things clicking. It does look like things are clicking together and things starting to make sense, but it is kind of one of those funny scenarios where, as Spurs fans, we just don't know what it's like to stick by a manager for a long time. And, I think we've had our frustrations with Ange, and that's totally okay to have frustrations with him. But I think we have to, maybe with the recent results, give him that benefit of the doubt. And 6-0 it is. I love that.
And I do think that sort of, what would I call it? As soon as things go wrong with manager, people are very quick to call for his head. And I do think that sort of stems from the board and the precedent that they've set in times gone by, where they haven't really stuck with a manager through the tough times. They've sacked them in the face of adversity. But when they do stick with managers through that sort of face of adversity, like they did with Martin Jol, it got us into European football. Harry Redknapp ended up getting us into Champions League football, bringing that progression. And Pochettino, we ended up nearly dominated the English game and European football. So when we do stick with a manager and give them time, we see the benefits, we see the rewards. And I think it's very important at Tottenham Hotspur, because we're not Man City, we're not Chelsea under Abramovich, where they're going to say, right, there's 200, 300 million, go and get exactly what you need just this summer loan. In January, we'll also give you another 120 million. And then summer come back to us, we'll throw another 500 million at it. We don't operate like that. So at Tottenham Hotspur, it's always going to take a manager time to fully build his squad together. There's always going to be parts of him that are using players that he doesn't trust. Hopefully now it seems like we're coming out of that and coming to the end of that, Paul. But big yourself up, my man. I really appreciate the support. But Jack, I do want you and Ribsy to have your say on Timo Werner, because RST follows up and says, even in his prime years, he was still clowned on for his finishing. Even at Stuttgart, he scored back-to-back last season. Then he had the sitter at Fulham, also the one at Newcastle as well. But Jack, what's your thoughts on Timo Werner at Tottenham at this moment in time? And because look, I think he's going to start tonight. I think many Spurs fans have to sort of put themselves in that frame of mind. But can he turn it around, Jack?
Yeah, we spoke yesterday on the fan show about whether it's a confidence issue or if it's a skill issue with Timo Werner. I'm in the belief that it started out as a confidence issue and then it bled into being a skill issue kind of later on, where his crisis of confidence has led to him also kind of dropping in his actual skill level in the final third and in the final moments. And I'd agree with actually what Davey Clark sort of said in the chat there, that even during his very, very impressive goal scoring streaks at RB Leipzig, I do remember a lot of the chances that he did put in the back of the net that were impressive finishes were actually moments where he didn't have to think about it all that much. It was kind of just, the ball was fizzed into him and then he just had to make a first time effort at it. And then he just slammed it into the back of the net. Where there were moments even with the German national team that I remember he was a very frustrating player to watch, where he'd be played in behind and he just completely scuffed the finish. Or there's a moment that did require a tad bit of composure and kind of calmness and he just never had it. And there was even that feeling that when he played for the German national team, that he, yes, is a guy that scores goals, but he doesn't have the same quality as some of the other players like a Gundogan or, a Kimmich or like a Marco Reus do, guys with sheer class and like sheer composure, in the way that they play. He just didn't seem to strike you with that type of same feeling. And yes, he had a really good period in Germany, but like, we've said before, that was a long time ago. And, is he ever going to replicate that? I'm not too sure, because he hasn't done it in a long, long time. But with Timo Werner, I just am convinced that it was starting out as a confidence issue. Then he probably broke a few mirrors, saw a witch doctor or something like that. And then he's just never been able to come back to it. And it's bled into a skill issue of some kind as well. And yeah, I think Timo Werner, he's kind of useful when he plays well. He is kind of useful, but he's not actually good enough, to be honest, for what we really need on that left wing.
Look, I think the fact that he's being moved out wide, I think, makes it a skill issue. I think if you're talking about him being up front, playing him in behind and stuff like that, I think maybe he's more suited to that. But in terms of having that guile and that craft out wide, I think is where it probably becomes into a skill issue. But Ribsy, Drew Zilla makes a good point. Brandon Johnson took him a while. He came good. Many fans were ready to give up on Kulusevski. Thank God they didn't. He's been our best player this season. Is there still time for Timo Werner to get it right at Tottenham? And is, Ange persisting in him and showing on that confidence like he did with Johnson, like he did with Kulu, despite many fans questioning him? They're coming out the other end of it now. Do you think if Ange sticks with someone like Timo Werner, he can also do the same?
Look, I'm going to be cruel because I was pretty cruel to Brennan Johnson, and then he came right.
True.
So I'm just going to
Close your
continue the
ears,
same
bud.
process and hope for the best result. Look, his performance at United was probably his best performance that he's had in a Spurs shirt. And then in that performance, he missed 2 one-on-one chances. So, look, he's a fast guy. He gets in behind. He gets those opportunities. But if he can't finish, then in his current form, he's useless to us. He needs to either find a way to find those advantages, those runs that he's getting in behind. If he can turn that into something else than his own personal shooting opportunities, then maybe we can find some use out of him. But in his current, I just can't see it. I can't see it at all. If the exact same thing happens that was happening with Brennan, like Brennan Johnson missed even probably better chances than Werner missed in that United game over the course of the last 18 months or whatever. I've seen him sky balls over the crossbar from basically the 6-yard box. So it can be done. It's not saying that there isn't a chance there for him to become better, but in his current form, no, thank you. Like we need to find better. Some of the guys in the chats have been saying as a third choice option winger that can play as an attacking player somewhere, as a backup. Sure, you can find worse players to do exactly that. But as someone we need to actually rely on, no, thank you.
Fair enough. And Drew, we'll let you round this up on Timo Werner. What's your thoughts? Because, like you said, other players have come good.
I mean, I feel like what you say earlier is poignant. I'm picking out stats that are between 2016 and 2020, and like you say, it's 2024 heading into 2025. So maybe it's just gotten to the point where he's kind of just past the point of being able to get it back. But I will say never say never. Like I say, he gets off the bench, he does what he needs to do. Ange seems to like him. He's the consummate professional, probably. Gets his head down. I know it's a lot of money, like people are saying in the chat, 165,000. You would expect a little more. We still didn't pay a transfer fee, so that's still cheaper than what was it? Diaby, that Aston Villa paid 50-60 million for, and then shipped him out to Saudi because he didn't really want to cut it in the Premiership. So it's a better deal than that was. It's a better deal than Anthony. So I would just take it. I really, if worst case scenario, I would like to think, if Mikey Moore's good enough, he would probably step in before Werner. I'd like to think Sonny hopefully will be fit enough that he's going to play the majority of minutes anyway. And I think people, again, another couple of people, I don't think it was in this chat, but somebody mentioned, we'll just cancel the loan and send him back in December or January. That's not how that works. Yeah, unfortunately, that's up to Leipzig. That's not up to Spurs. So unfortunately, we've got him till the end of the season. So we might as well just try and get behind the guy.
What we could do, though, is threaten that we're not going to register him for the second part of the season. I'm pretty sure, they'd be very quick to maybe take him off us and send him out somewhere else. But I do understand what you're saying. Let's wait and see what happens. And look, when it comes to Timo Werner, despite my feelings and that, all I'm here to do is just commentate on what I see and give my feelings. That's why I created the channel. But I must stress, I do want it to work out for him. I do hope he can find that purple patch and go and hit a bit of form, because if he does, the better it is for Tottenham Hotspur. If we can have every player across that front line when they step in contributing. Unfortunately, I just don't see it in him at all. I don't see it coming good. But like I said, I really do hope he does, because, it can hopefully help us extend this run that we're on. So let's wait and see what Timo Werner does produce today. But big up artist, you're obviously not a big fan of Timo Werner, my man. So, let me know if he does score, though. You'll be rejoicing me shamelessly in my song for Timo Werner. Let me know. Then we've got this from Shem Tam. He says, need to start with intensity and not let up. Come on, you Spurs. And I think that's the key to the game. I think against Karabakh, despite the sending off, I think, Dragusin started slow. You could see that when he passed the ball 20 yards backwards from Van de Ven, you sort of knew that something like that was coming. But to the large, I think a lot of the players started with a good intensity. And I think, when they went down to 10 men, it probably helped us, because you've seen a lot of them making a lot more runs, moving around the pitch, a hell of a lot more digging in. And That's all you need against these teams. Technical wise, it shouldn't even be a problem. You know, that's why a lot of our players end up at Tottenham Hotspur in the big bucks, and a lot of their players end up playing in the Hungary League. You know, it's because of the quality difference and the gap in quality. So, you know, as long as we're prepared to do the basics, outrun them, outfight them, you know, defend properly from corner kicks, and you know, look, it's easy for me to say as a fan I don't respect them, but our players to show them a little bit of respect. I think, you know, it's an easy game. I don't think these games should be as hard as they've been made out to be in years gone by, to be brutally honest. I think, you know, because of some of the defeats, you know, it struck a lot of fear into Tottenham fan base where we're almost just chasing our tails. Oh, we shouldn't do this and we should do that and stuff like that, you know, because of the PTSD from years gone by. But look at other clubs. The reason why they can go deep in all competitions is because at points they make rotations and the players step up. And it's about time we hit that, you know, ourselves, Shem Tam, if we really want to go on and compete. So hopefully now is the time. Everybody here contribute. But guys, we are going to go on for about another half an hour or so. And then we will call it time, then let Jack get ready for the watch along and stuff like that, and myself as well. So, you know, we're going to go through, you know, what we sort of expect to see in the lineup today. Big up the owl lad. Werner, not as good as Bale, but better than Nkudu. Yeah, that's a fair point. I think what Nkudu's contribution was that cross
What a range.
Against Fulham in the Cup. I think we ended up winning that game 1-0 or something that day. I think that was his only contribution. I remember when we signed him and Ange, I was left scratching my head. I was like, who the fuck are these guys? I'm a nerd. I play Football Manager, FIFA, and, you know, watch, you know, obscure highlights on Twitter or on you know, YouTube and stuff. And even I never came across these guys. I was like, holy shit, what we have to sign in here. What I'd do for Gareth Bale back in this team. Like, it's actually sad. You go back and look at the players Tottenham have had over the Premier League. If you could have them all in one team, then Bale, Modric, Bale, you know, Lennon, Kane, Son, fucking Toby, you know, I mean, we would win.
But look at some of the dross we've got as well. Danny Rose is still Googling some of these players. Danny Rose is still on Google going, who did we buy?
No, that's very true. And do you know what? That's something that I was thinking of. I've had in my closet for about a year doing Tottenham's worst 11 Premier League of all time. I think, you know, it'd be one laughing stock, that would be. But guys, let's get into it. Let's start with the goalkeeper. Ange did go with Vicario in a match against Karabag. Jack, we'll go with you on this one. Do you think he'll go with the Italian again, or do you think he'll look to give Fraser Forrester another opportunity here?
I really hope he goes with Vicario, because I think that would be the better decision at the end of the day, because we need to get a win. We need to get as close to qualification for the next rounds. We really want to avoid that Europa League playoff for this competition, because I think that would just add on unnecessary games. So we should look to try to go with a stronger team, and probably the much stronger team would include Vicario in it. And with Fraser Forrester, I just think he played so poorly against Coventry that I'm just so worried about then this game, because you would think that Coventry City is a probably even worse level than probably what FERENCVAROS is going to be. And if Fraser Forrester looked that rattled and that intimidated and just that out of sorts against Coventry City, I'm a little worried about how he'll handle this FERENCVAROS atmosphere and just the game in general. But what is kind of concerning, Dave, and I don't want to bleed this into another question, though, is Ribsy brought this up yesterday on the fan show. If Ange decides to go with Vicario for this, what again was the point of naming Fraser Forrester to the Europa League squad? Because then you could have used that spot for Jed Spence. Because if he decides to go with Vicario, then he clearly doesn't have much confidence in someone like Fraser Forrester. So why include him in this Europa League squad if you're not going to use Fraser Forrester and you don't have that much faith in him? Maybe it was just a mistake. Maybe he originally did have confidence in Forrester, but then Forrester played that badly in the League Cup that he had to change his mind all of a sudden. That could well and be the case. And I'd understand that, you know, everyone makes a mistake with squad selection, but that's what is an interesting thought point, is if he does go with Vicario, then that's a sign that he doesn't have confidence in Fraser Forrester, and he shouldn't have included him in the Europa League squad.
You know what, on that, Jack, I think for me, the idea was he plays him out there in these sort of games like Karabag, Ferencvaros, and that because he's an older head, he brings that experience to the youngsters and helps them in that regard. However, this was another question.
He was the most rattled man on the pitch against Coventry.
Most rattled man, you know, and he nearly cost us that game, which was very, very concerning. But I was about to ask you a question, you know, a follow-up to that. If Vicario does play, do you think Ange Postecoglou has recognised very quickly that Fraser Forster has done a bit like the Hugo Lloris situation where Forster had to step in for him, that, he was shocked by what he's seen against Coventry, and he's just like, look, this guy's finished now.
I think that is the case. And even also what was funny yesterday on the fan show was the fact that, I asked a lot of people the question of, is it just signs of old age? Is that's what's happening here? We got the final juice out of the Forster squeeze, or is it just him being really rusty in a game like Coventry City? And I think Ribsy said, why not both? Maybe he is really rusty and he's showing the signs of old age. And if that's the case, then you really don't want to risk him for a game like this. And I think Ange probably, to a degree, picked the right game to try to embed and give Forster that chance. It's just he really, shit the bed, for lack of a better word. And I think now Ange is going to have to really think about whether Forster is reliable enough. And I think he's probably, with the squad selection he'll make in about 30 minutes time, we'll find out whether, he has decided whether Forster is reliable enough. And I think it would be a massive mistake to play Forster, but I can sympathize in the situation Ange finds himself in. He practically has no reliable backup goalkeeper. Forster doesn't seem reliable. Luca Gunter, we know, is very, very young and is probably not necessarily ready for a game like this, especially with the goalkeeper position where it's very different to outfield areas and being a midfielder or being like a winger. And then also, in the case of Brandon Austin and Alfie Whiteman, I don't think they've ever been ready to play in games like this. So he's in a bad situation, Ange Postecoglou, when it comes to the goalkeeper, but he should go with Vicario.
No, 100%. We got this from the Hotspur Hood, says 3-1. I reckon Ange has given me some hope with light at the end of the tunnel that he can adapt now. Give me 10 to 12 solid games. Not all have to be wins, and I'll step down on Ange out. Come on, you effing Spurs. Look, like I said, I've always sort of understood, people questioning Ange Postecoglou and stuff like that. I've always understood it. But me, Dan, I've always said, keeping a guy in the job, giving him a bit of time and stuff like that is the right thing to do. And I got slammed for that, but here we are, he's coming out the right end. I do, persist that we've got a tricky run of games coming up, after the international break. We've got Brighton before the international break, and we've got West Ham, Villa, Man City. Things can very, very turn quick the other side. But look, hopefully now we're seeing enough going forward that, we can keep Ange Postecoglou in the job for a second year, and let's see what comes of it. Big up, Dan. Good to see you in the house. And then we've got Robert Hardy moaning that, we're talking about the manager. Like I said, if we're going to bring him up, I don't think it should just be binary where you bring him up in one terms where you want to berate the guy and not bring him up and give people a chance to praise him. If you don't like that, that's on you. But these pre-match build-ups have always been the same where we have these sort of discussions. If you don't like that and, you're too much of a snowflake for a conversation around the manager, be my guest. There's other channels out there. But for me, I'm going to have these conversations. I'll have any conversation about Tottenham Hotspur. At the end of the day, I'm a loser. I love this football club. And Ange Postecoglou's the manager. And I feel like if he's winning games, there was many people that called out his tactics, his high line, this, that, and the other. I think it's only right to put the same questions back in front of people and give them an opportunity to praise it. If you don't like that, there's plenty of other channels out there that might have different discussions, although I think you'll find it hard. I think most of them will have discussions on the manager, to be brutally honest with you, Rob. So I'm sorry that's not for your liking, but 475 other people do enjoy the conversation, so I'm sorry you're in the minority. Jack, anything you want to say before I move on?
I just wanted to add, I actually think it was more of an opportunity for people like myself who probably wobbled a little bit on Ange, who maybe had a bit of a head bobble on Ange, to embarrass ourselves even further. It was not really an opportunity to question Ange or anything like that. It was actually an opportunity for maybe people like myself who have been maybe on the, especially with that Coventry game, I was questioning a lot of things with what Ange was doing, and it actually gave me a chance to embarrass myself further and give Ange his flowers, really, right? So I think that's what maybe that question allowed, was Ange got the credit that he deserves and was getting maybe the praise that he deserves from people who have questioned him in the past, like myself. So if anything, I think that question was more geared towards people like me who had a bit of a head bobble and a bit of a head wobble on Ange Postecoglou.
Anyway, that's that, and I'm going to keep
the diplomacy there with Jack. Such diplomacy.
It is. He does it a lot better. He does it a lot better than I do. I'm a bit more straightforward. But look, at the end of it, I think people need to understand what these YouTube channels are about, right? We set up these channels ourselves to be able to have conversations that we want around Tottenham Hotspur, and no one else from any outside is going to dictate what I talk about. Me and Jack, we do this together, and we'll put together what we feel like we want to talk about. And that's the whole thing about these YouTube channels. All they are is just opinions. Normal people coming on, giving their opinion at the end of the day. Rob, if you disagree with it, look, fan show's open Monday, my man. Come on, have a chat with me. Let's have a chat. Let's introduce ourselves to each other. Tell me where you're coming from, my man, and then we'll take it from there. I'm open to the conversation. Feel free to come on. Same with you, Johnny, if that's what you want to do, my man. And, tell us why we shouldn't be talking about the managers at Tottenham Hotspur. Big up Hotspur Hippie. Good to see you. I know this guy's probably loving life at this moment in time. I do have to give him a phone call at some point. I've just had a lot going on, Paul, so I do apologize. Look, there's a lot of people out there that's been trying to get in contact with me over the last 2 weeks. I do apologize. Just had a lot going on and stuff like that. So just bear with me. I do know who I need to get back to over the course of the international break. But big up, Paul. But guys, let's move into the defense, because do you play Van de Ven again, put more minutes into his legs? He came off early against Man United, maybe to give him a rest ahead of this game, knowing the problem that Radu Dragusin has caused. But let's start with Dragusin first, guys. After that sending off against Karabakh, do you think he's lost a bit of faith from the manager now moving forward? Like, would you be surprised to see him get straight back into the team at the early opportunity, or do you think you'll have to go and earn it now? And we'll go to you on this one, Drew.
I think given the lack of actual centre-backs that we've got, to be honest, I think he's just going to have to rely on him. I don't think he's got any choice to put as many minutes into Romero and Van de Ven as he has. I think he'd have already liked, obviously, to have given one of them less minutes. But yeah, obviously Dragusin lost his head last week, and here we are. But I don't know, man. I mean, I've seen good things about him. I've seen things where obviously he's still learning the system. There's another room here. There, I got one team sheet that says it's likely to be Porro, Van de Ven, Romero, and Davies, and I've got another one saying that it's going to be Porro, Romero, Archie Gray, and Ben Davies. So I don't know. Well, I genuinely couldn't call it. If Dragusin was available, apparently he's. I mean, I saw him pre-season. I think he played centre back a couple of times, and I think, to be honest with you, if you are going to do it, you're going to do it against a subpar Hungarian team where you've got Romero one side and Ben Davies the other, who should be able to coach an 18-year-old through a game. I mean, at the very least, they should be able to do that. And if they can't, then that's kind of on them. That's not on Ange.
I'd agree.
100%. And guys, let's quickly take a minute to talk about Ben Davies. I mean, Ribsy, you're probably going to fall off your chair just like many other people out there, but I think Ben Davies has actually been good when we've called upon him this season. Against Coventry, he made that block that kept us in the game, that allowed us to go on and get that victory. Against Karabakh the other night, bar that one time where he got picked, just like similar to Radu Dragusin. Defensively, he was good. And on the ball, I couldn't believe my eyes. I was seeing the guy pinging passes around like he was fucking Pirlo. I really couldn't believe what I was seeing. Where do you think he plays today, Ribsy? Left back or left side of centre back? And what defence would you like to see out there?
Well, it all depends, right, on if Van de Ven plays or not. If Van de Ven doesn't play, I would prefer to see, even though I hate him playing at left back, I would prefer to see him play there if Van de Ven is playing in the team. Or either, honestly, even if Archie Gray is going to fill in, I'd prefer him fill in at centre back than fill in at left back, because I've never seen him ever play at left back. And looking at even the season at Leeds, where he was playing quite a bit of right back, he didn't play once at left back, which is, it sounds like something you can sort of, maybe he can muddle through, but I've seen him play centre back in our preseason, and it wasn't fabulous, but it was serviceable. So, I mean, I've seen it work. So maybe that's the way to go. But this is a perfect example of looking at our squad, and if we've got this one red card, and now we're playing someone completely out of position in either left back or centre back, and it just shows the limits of our squad at the moment. So we have to do a better job there. And as Jack was saying earlier when I was talking about it, in terms of registering Forster over someone like Jed Spence, for example, it just shows that we're trying to fill the crack in case Vicario gets injured or something, and we need to have Forster then come in and play. But when we're talking about our limited amount of outfielders we have at the moment that are match fit and ready to go, I think that's far more important in this sort of match than it is having Forster play over someone like Austin, who, in my opinion, that they're both not good enough, so it doesn't make much difference which one of them you choose.
No, 100%. 100%. Moodog says, good afternoon, Dave and Jack. Is Dragosin suspended? He is. He's out for this game. Did anyone, I think it was a 1-game ban in the end. I think you incur. So he is suspended for this game, Moondog, which, brings me on, Jack. Look, Van de Ven, do we run the risk again, or do we look for another solution? I think it would be helpful if we did bring someone like Dorrington. Maybe that's why Dante Casanova has travelled that there. He might start, but hope you get the game early and get him off, Jack.
Yeah, that's actually a decent way to look at it.
Sorry, you look at Son last week. We paid the price for it.
No, we did, and we've paid the price before actually already when Mickey Van de Ven for pushing him in a game when he didn't need to be pushed, and we could have thrown in someone like Dragosin. I really struggled, Dave, while you were gone with the predicted lineup. That back four was so hard for me.
It's hard, isn't
it? with no Udogie, no Jed Spence, no Reguilón technically to pick from. And I was also thinking in the back of my head, I think Van de Ven does need probably a rest of some sort, but I don't trust Ben Davies at left back. I trust him more as a left-sided center back, but I don't trust him as a left back because I think he can get caught in behind with some of those passes if he gets too far forward in the game. And there's the chance that when you come up against FERENCVAROS, the majority of the game you're going to be playing in their half. And so there's that moment or two where Ben Davies would get caught, you would think, in behind. So I went with Gray over at left back and then Porro at right back because I think Porro technically hasn't been pushed as much in games. Maybe he could, be asked to just put in another decent shift and see if he can, put in close to 90 minutes and then we could give him some rest maybe later down the road in the season. But I don't know, maybe you do go with Romero, Davies, and Van de Ven, and then I would just push Van de Ven more to the left back position, have him put in a decent shift out there, and then, like you say, maybe throw in someone like a Casanova or a Dorrington into the team, push Davies out wide when the game is probably more sealed and there's more of a likelihood that we do end up getting the 3 points that we need in this game. But I really struggled with this one, Dave. I think Van de Ven does deserve a rest. But Ben Davies, I trust more as a left-sided center back than I do as a left back. I think it's a very different story with him when he's playing as a fullback. It's really hard for me, Dave. I'm not kidding. This was the worst time for me to do the predicted lineup because I was struggling to come up with the back four.
No, 100%. Look, them lineups are hard to do at times, because it's a lot of guesswork, basically, trying to put yourself in Ange Postecoglou's head. I'm just going to put this up for a minute, Jack. If you log into Twitter and go to Spurs web, they've grabbed the squad.
I thought it would be an hour before, not an hour 15 again.
This is, I think UEFA have released it early on whatever app this is on. I don't know how to make it bigger, but you do. But I'll read it out for it quickly. But it is Vicario in goals. It looks like it's going to be Ben Davies and at left back, Pedro Porro at right back with Romero and Archie Gray at centre back, Basuma in your CDM, along with Bergval and Papa Matasar in the midfield, Mikey Moore out left, Will Lancashire up front with Werner on the opposite side. So it'll be Werner out left, Mikey Moore off the right, and Will Lancashire up top. So a start for Will Lancashire and for Mikey Moore. And people said, and won't use youngsters.
I got it perfect for the back. I got it perfect then for the back line. It's just the forward line. I figured he was going to go with the stronger one of Solanke and Johnson and was going to push those two. But fair play to Ange Postecoglou. I think this is a very bold lineup. But at the same time, I think we have to own up to what we've wanted in the past. We've called him out before for him not playing the younger players, for not giving them that chance. This is a decent game to do that. It is going to be a difficult atmosphere, but you'd imagine that, they should be able to handle the quality of a FERENCVAROS, and fair play to him. And he went with the back four that I predicted that, he might go for as well. Impressive.
I think he gives look, fair play to Postecoglou. You know, many people are questioning he's not giving these youngsters a chance, you know, all this. And I did say, look, give it time. You know, a couple of games in Europa League. That's where you're going to see them come in, and here they are. And what I like about this lineup is, you know, I get some of it's forced because of injuries in the back line and stuff. But you've got a good spine of the team that will allow the likes of Lancashire and Mikey Moore to be Bergvall to go and play their game with a lot of freedom. You've got Vicario in goals, which probably signals the end of Fraser Forrester, Pedro Porro at right back. I mean, Will Lancashire, if you're Will Lancashire tonight, you couldn't dream of any better service coming from that guy. Romero at centre back should be able to keep it steady there. You know, you got Sarr and Basuma in the midfield who have a lot of Premier League games in their legs. You know, Sarr's been a regular last season, so you know you've got a good midfield base, and then up front you're just allowing these youngsters to be free, go and explore, go and create, and go and try and score goals. If I wasn't already excited for this game, I am hella excited now. If anyone knows me, for a long time I've been saying turn to the academy, pull up some of these youngsters, give them their opportunity. You know, Lancashire was impressive pre-season. It's so much impressive. He was further down the pecking order behind Parrott, Scarlett, Valise, all being sent out. Parrott was sold. Scarlett sent out on loan. Valise sent out on loan for this guy to be kept. And it goes to show, if you turn up with pre-season with the right attitude and take the minutes to prove your point, the wonders that he can do. Mikey Moore, I would argue, was our best winger pre-season. He showed the most over any of our forward players in the front of pre-season. That's a real opportunity for him tonight. So hopefully these guys can really take it. Delighted to see Bergvall get his opportunity, being hooked early, sacrificed almost for Dragston last week. Hopefully he goes out there with a point to prove tonight. And you know what? I'm very excited to see what we can do going forward. I think we're going to be very, very surprised. Jack, what's the bench? And then we'll let Ribsy and Drew in on this as well. Guys, in the comment section, please let us know what you think of the lineups. Are you excited to see what Will Lancashire and Mikey Moore can produce? Jack, what's those bench?
We have Forster. We have Austin as the two goalkeepers on the bench. Alfie Dorrington is on the bench.
Come on,
well.
he's going to
really
get game
good to
time
see
tonight.
there. Van de Ven, Casanova as well. Dante Casanova, one of the best names you would ever find in a footballer. Bentancur in there too. Madison, Kulisevsky. Ajayi has also been brought on the plane. I never even noticed that he was brought on the plane.
Oh, wow.
And then
That's
Johnson and Solanke, Dave. So Ajayi could be used as like an option on the wing, maybe as a relief for Timo Werner if things go really well tonight. And then you do have some of the stronger guns in Johnson, Solanke, Madison, Van de Ven, Bentancur. Honestly, love the bench. Love everything about this team, to be honest. The only thing I'm a little slightly worried by is Timo Werner. He's very persistent with playing Timo, and it's also because of the injuries. But maybe in an ideal world, you play, I don't know, someone like a Sonny or something like that. It's not available, but someone like a Sonny probably would be good to have alongside a Lancashire and a Mikey Moore instead of Timo Werner. But winners can't be, you know, we can't be that picky. You know, we can't be.
No, look, as well. But I think if you got Bergvall behind them, Bergvall, Werner, Lancashire, that, you know, you got to work on that partnership, develop it for the likes of Son leaving or, you know, Solanke getting older and stuff like that. You have to work that three in there. And I think it's the right time to do that. Just quickly about the bench. I know I'm rambling, but people know how excited I'm. I've been waiting for this moment. I've manifested it. I've called for it. Dorrington off the bench tonight. I can see that happening at some point, maybe coming in for Romero, you know, at some point and getting him out there. And I really hope this kid gets his opportunity. You know, last year he was kept around actually while Ashley Phillips was sent out on loan in the January. Postecoglou kept him around. Unfortunately, an injury came about with his hamstring, which kept him out. Then by the time he got back, we had players getting back from their injuries and stuff, which put him further down the pecking order. But he's been kept around again this year. You know, he's got some minutes into his legs for the under-21s. And I would not be surprised. And I really, really hope this kid does get his opportunity tonight. Everyone that knows me, I've single-handedly picked him out of that back line from the under-21s and said, this is the guy I think is going to make it. So hopefully he does get some minutes tonight, long deserved, and hopefully an opportunity to express what he can bring to Tottenham Hotspur, because I do think, you know, we do need a good group of homegrown Spurs players that support this club. Will Lancashire, I'm not sure about him, but I know Mikey Moore supports the club. Donnelly supports the club. Dorrington is a Spurs fan. I think it's good to have these guys come through, because I think, you know, you can leave your hand. You can leave, you know your club's in safe hands if you've got fans in the dressing room. You know, it's sort of, you won't see some of the shit I think we've seen in years gone by where players are allowed to slack off. Casanova, be interested to see whether he gets game time. Ajayi, it'll be interesting. I think this game will go two ways. I think if we go out, go get the job done, you'll see Ajayi, Dorrington, Casanova come off the bench. I think if it doesn't go the way we want, you see the likes of Solanke, Johnson, people like that come off the bench. But we'll go down to you, Drew. What's your thoughts on the lineup, sir?
I'm absolutely buzzing with it, to be honest with you, because not only is he given the players a chance, and I have to say, I think the only reason he hasn't been given the players a chance is because he's not been able to give the players a chance because of one thing and another, because of injuries, because obviously he's still looking out for him, right? He's still looking out for his job. You can't just throw these kids in willy-nilly, as my grandma used to say. But I think this is awesome, because if you do put Lancashire in there, you get more in there. You give Dorrington game time, and they actually really, really take off. You're really, really solving some of your squad problems that you thought you had. You know, we're still missing really probably. I mean, I like Davies. I think he's good. We're still probably missing another backup left back. But you know, if Lancashire and Moore really take off, I mean, this is just really exciting for me, because I did not think. I was talking last night on the fan show, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, Mikey Moore and Lancashire, players like that, they're going to get what, 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there. If they're good enough, maybe they'll get a half. And now he's flown them out to Hungary and they're starting. That to me says just so much about what these kids' potential could be.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is just, if it doesn't quite go to plan, let's all not chicken little the sky is falling. It's just an acorn, right? Like I don't because I know what some fans are like, man. Oh, you know, Moore will have a bad pass, he'll pass it through to, you know, Lancashire, or you know, blow it over the bar, and then all of a sudden he'll be called Shankshire because apparently he can't finish and he's only 18. I just don't want any of that crap. So let's just hold this. Let's all realize that actually what is happening in front of us is what we've all been asking for.
Yeah.
So, you know,
well
I'm buzzing. I actually got kind of little goosebumps when I saw this lineup.
Yeah, same here.
This is we're balling. Ange is cooking.
And look, I think it's absolutely right to echo that message, that we got to realize we do have some youngsters out here. And look, to be honest, I'm of the opinion, I think they're going to surprise a lot of people. I have no concerns. I don't think it's going to go tits up. But just in case it does, you know, it's good that these guys are getting game time, and, you know, don't treat these like they're seasoned pros. You know, if you are going to maybe critique, it's where you think they need to do better to fit into the side or to sustain themselves at this sort of level, rather than just write them off, which I think is very, very important from us as a fan base, because we do not want to kill these guys considering the talent that they have. And I can tell you now, for someone that's been an avid watcher of the academy, you know, this is the best group I've seen come through in a long, long time. So we don't want to kill them off before they've even got going. But Ribsy,
class of 24, come on!
I can't wait. I can't wait. But Ribsy, a lot of people, you know, when it comes to Ange Postecoglou, you know, he doesn't play youngsters, this, that, and the other. It's a brave statement from him tonight, right?
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, he plays them obviously when it's appropriate, and I think this is a perfect example of when it is appropriate to bring these players in, because you know, it's not just giving them a run; they're required. We've got a congested little spell of games coming up, and this is part of the squad here, and that he's letting them know that they need to step up because they're an important part of the squad and they need to perform. It's not charity minutes, you know, like it's like so many of these kids, you know, they wrap them up in cotton wool and they only put them on for 10 minutes and they say, you know, oh, it doesn't really matter what you do because you're just a kid and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, you need to have some expectation. You need to have some skin in the game. And I think this is a good example of exactly that. And there's enough talent there on that bench as well that if it all goes tits up, we can maybe salvage it anyway. So I'm happy with the pick. I mean, that back line, it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see which way they actually line up and how that's going to actually be set up in the match. I'm perfectly happy with the midfield. I mean, Sarr hasn't had the greatest bit of form in the last few matches or the end of last season either, but I really feel like
scored last time out though.
Yeah, exactly. This might be a bit of a confidence builder for him again. Basuma back in the team. Bergvall, hopefully he gets the 90 minutes or close to that he really has. He's earned with his performances up until this point. I think that he's ready to blow Bergvall especially.
Yeah.
Werner, I mean, we'll see. Like he's maybe a bit of a steady hand there for the two kids up front with him, so it's not a bad pick. Obviously, I'm not expecting Werner to score because he just doesn't. But you know, he's got some firepower next to him. Those young kids are hungry, so I think it's going to be okay. I'm pretty happy with that lineup.
100%. I'm okay with it as well. I think people forget the likes of Mikey Moore and Will Ange, you know, they've played against League One, League Two oppositions, full senior teams, you know, in that League Cup trophy that they're playing in the group stages. So they do have minutes against senior pros. And, you know, if you were to put FERENCVAROS into the English pyramid, would there be championship even? I'm not quite so sure. So, you know, for me, I think we should have some confidence with, you know, with some of these youngsters going out there. King Huddle, I do hear what you're saying. You're not really going to get too much protest from me because I have asked for this. However, if we lose to these, I will be asking questions of everybody in general in terms of the mentality because we shouldn't be losing to these whatsoever. But I do hear what you're saying, King Huddle. And then we've also got, who else is in here? Balu says, the lineup is horrendous. Same midfield versus commentary effed us up. Well, look, everyone's entitled to their opinion. Everyone sees football through different eyes, which is the great thing about life. Got this from Dark Sun G. Really happy to see you to play. Come on, more Lanks, and come on, you Spurs. I'm just going to take this off the screen for a moment, Dark Sun G, so I can address you because this is something that me and you have been saying for quite some time since we first sort of started engaging with each other. You know, through the Jose Mourinho times, some of the hard times under Conte. Instead of putting out senior professionals out there who get rolled over and accept it, turn to the academy, use some of the youngsters we have coming through. They chose not to. The likes of Madueke left, the likes of Lavinia left, the likes of Dennis Serkin all left for free, and a lot more. Louis Binks, who played for Coventry the other night, left as well. He went out to, I think it was that team that Fabregas is over now and stuff like that. You know, so we had a lot of players walking away because they're looking at and going, if I can't get into this team or even be given an opportunity, what chance do I have at Tottenham in general? But we are starting to see, you know, with a lot of these guys that did sign long-term contracts at Tottenham, I do think the plan is to try and get as many of them through as they can because it solves that problem in the transfer window every season, you know, especially for Europe where you have to have 4 club trained players from the academy in your European squad. You don't have to dick about with that. And that's one of the reasons why, you know, Jed Spence has been excluded because you've had to include the likes of an Alfie Whiteman or, you know, a Brandon Austin, who are never really going to get minutes for Spurs. The only time you ever see them is rolled out in pre-season or end-of-season tour. You know, they never get any meaningful minutes at Tottenham Hotspur, and it becomes a headache. So hopefully now these guys can come in, take their opportunities and earn more. But we've asked for this for quite some time, Dark Sun G, and now our time is here. Hopefully, we will be proven right tonight, Dark Sun G. Big yourself up, my man. He also says, our Dom has been called up for England. Congrats to him. I do think it's because Ivan Toney's been left out. The fact that he's gone to Saudi, you know, that it has opened up a space. And Dominic Solanke, I think, was always going to be the next guy in there. But Jack, you've been a big fan of the Big Dom. We'll probably get onto him more when we start the watch along. But, you know, he's got the England call up, Jack. Does he deserve it? Some would say he's only scored 3 tap-ins.
In a sense, he does, because he had such a great season last year for Bournemouth, and he, to a degree, you could argue, might have been a bit hard done by to not have been included in that Europa or in that Euro squad, because he did actually have a better season than Ivan Toney. Whether you rate Ivan Toney more or not, you know, is a different, I think, debate. But he did have technically, by the numbers, a much better season than Ivan Toney. I think Dominic Solanke does deserve it. I think he's turned into a different person. I said, you know, in the last year or two under, you know, Iraola as well as Gary O'Neill, I feel like he's kind of put away that, you know, kind of Chelsea reject, Liverpool reject tag. He seems to have matured as a person. He seems to have matured as a forward, as a player. And I really like the look of Dominic Solanke. He just seems to kind of take up the mold of, you know, like I said, I'm in my Duncan Ferguson era, and he kind of takes up that type of mold of a large man type striker, the guy that can hold up the ball, be physical, have no problem, you know, occupying the attention of center backs, you know, moving about the box, dropping deep, taking hits from behind, and he knows how to play with his back to goal. And then he's just been able to be that poacher as well, you know, and you're grabbing the poacher goals, that can be very useful to anybody in any team. And the way that England play, especially under someone like Gareth Southgate, who pretty much relied on poacher type goals, you would say, he could have been pretty useful to maybe someone like Gareth Southgate. But now under a new manager who's been giving a lot of different opportunities to different players, that's fair play to the England manager. He's been giving a lot of new guys opportunities, and Dominic Solanke, I think, has been very deserving of one in the last
Mm.
year or so. So I'm glad he's gotten it. Very happy for my man, Dom Dark Sun G. And I wonder if he has a special anime celebration for his squad selection.
Dom Solanke scores again. 65 million down the drain. Absolutely love it. Look, hopefully, you know, he continues that on against Brighton at the weekend. I don't really want to see him get any minutes for Tottenham tonight, to be brutally honest. I think we need to preserve his energy, Dark Sung G, but absolutely love that. And we've got Dark Sung G. He says, this is what we all wanted to see last year, but because our Deadwood failed badly in the cup games, Ange couldn't use these cup games for youths, Carabao, FA Cup, etc. Drew, Ribsy, you got any strong feelings towards this that you want to say?
What about Dark Sunji's comment?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just, you know, I would echo it. This is what we wanted. If we'd have done this before, and if we'd have played all those kids for a little longer that you reeled out and mentioned, there's even another one that left. Can't for the life of me remember his name, but he was a winger, and I think he ended up going off to Belgium.
Yeah, McCandy.
No, not McCandy.
No, there was. I think it began with an R, didn't it? Like Randall.
No, it with an M. Yeah, another M. Not like
anyway.
Madueke,
Yeah,
something similar.
Yeah, we've, you know, he was a Madueke-esque player, and there's nothing that says if we'd have kept Madueke, he'd be the player that he is now, because you can't say that, because life just is what it is, and maybe him going out and doing what he did made him the player that he is. So you can't really say that. But we should have been doing this for the last 2 or 3 years. It's really frustrating that Mourinho and Conte just didn't want to, especially Conte. He was adamant he had his first level, and you know that was it. It just reinforces how I felt about Ange in the first place. He's given chances. Romain Mundell, thank you, Dark Sunji. He's giving chances to players that he's now able to give chances to, because he's put himself in a position to be able to do so. And I think, we're just onwards and upwards, man. It's just awesome.
100%. And, you know, hopefully this can be the defining moment of a project where we are starting to include absolutely everybody going forward. Ribsy, anything you want to say on the back of what Drew Zilla and Jack Sangji are saying here?
No, just once again, just echoing what Dark Sun G's saying there. That the obviously we were expecting, without Europe last season, we were expecting to have some cup games to be able to use some of these kids in, and it just didn't happen at all because we just failed at the first hurdle. So we've got more games this season. We've got this opportunity. These players are a year older than they were last season, so. You know, I'm not sitting here saying I'm expecting the world out of them, but they're here to play, and I expect them to play. I expect them to get on the field and to give us a match. So let's. I'm just behind them. That's all I got to say.
100%. Big up Dark Sung G. You know, kickoff is just less than an hour away, so I absolutely cannot wait. Me and Jack will be kicking off the watch along at 5:15. So you know, hopefully people can come and you know, enjoy us. And let's talk about some of the youth, and hopefully we see some great football from some of these Dark Sun G. Big yourself up, my man, and really appreciate support. I know it's a big evening for you, and you're going to be sitting in front of the telly with a big grin on your face watching these. You've manifested it, you wanted it, and here it is. Hopefully they do not let us down. Dark Sun G, big up Darius and the big D as well. Good to see you guys. But look, that brings us to the end part of the show. We'll go and get everybody's quick score prediction. I'm going to put Dermot's link in the chat as well. He was here beforehand. He had to go, you know, family attended. So we're going to put his link in there. Make sure you do get across and make sure you smash the subscribe button over there. Drew, first of all, absolutely delighted to have you on one of these. Really appreciate you giving up your time, my man. I know, you know, it's a hard enough time for you at this moment in time. Hopefully Brendan Johnson is making it a little bit better for you. But also big up Soren in the chat. Good to see you, sir. Hopefully you got back from the family time. He's loving the lineup, that you can sit back and watch some sauce and football tonight. But Drew, being a great addition to the panel, I'd love to have you again, my man. What's your score prediction?
It's been a pleasure. Hopefully, the first of many, because I love talking to you guys, and it's a wonderful community that you got over here. I would say, just before I give my score prediction to the 542 watching, give the old likes up. Come on, can we get to 50% on that? Because these guys do a sterling job. As far as the result, I will say FERENCVAROS 1, Tottenham Hotspur 4.
No, I really do hope so. I really do hope so, lad. I can't wait. That means Will Lancashire will score a brace, and Mikey Moore will either score one and set up one or score two. Hopefully, that would be the ideal outcome for tonight on that 4-0. Big up, Rain. Really appreciate that. Donovan's gone 4-0. Oz Spurs gone 2-1. Ribsy, what's your score prediction? And again, really enjoy having you back, my man. You did say you like doing these once a month. You don't any more than that is a bit of a headache. So, I'll see you in November. But I really appreciate your time, my man. And what's your score prediction?
I think we'll do the clean sheet, but I don't think we're going to get 4. I think it's going to be 2. I think 2-0. I think that would be a solid, proper win and a good spanking away in Hungary. I'd be very happy with that performance. I think they'll both come in the second half.
Ooh, interesting. Hopefully not. Yeah, I'd like to see us, do it in the first half. I don't think I could stomach it going to half time and the game still being in the balance. I think that's when my blood pressure will start rising. You start seeing me get a bit red and tetchy on screen. So hopefully, I could sit there, sing, clap. That would be absolutely brilliant. But everybody, also big up Ribsy in the chat there. Great contribution. I really enjoy having him on, actually. So thank you on that, Ribsy and Drew. And then Jack, we'll give you this from Artist T, and then we'll get your score prediction. We'll go and get ready for the watch long. He says, I want the youth to play, but my concern is this. How will the young guys handle the atmosphere? I'd be less concerned if it were a home game. And I think he raises a good point. I think at home, they're going to get the love, the adulation. I think away from home, I wouldn't be surprised to see them get booed and jeered every time the ball comes near them for the crowd to try and put them off early on. How do you think they're going to stand up to it?
Yeah, it's not even also the atmosphere. It's also maybe even the fact that these young players, they do play on like pristine, pitches with also, like pristine atmosphere around them of people supporting them. And they have a lot that, helps them get the best out of, their abilities at Tottenham Hotspur. And then playing away from home in an atmosphere like this could be a very different experience for them. And when they play for the under 21s, let's be honest, they're very small crowds that are just sort of there just to watch them and kind of get some scouting on the players in general. And so there isn't much of an atmosphere to begin with. But this is all part of learning how to become a professional footballer to a degree. Yep. I don't think Ange has thrown them into the deep end, but he certainly has thrown them into the pool somehow. And we'll see if they can swim in this situation where it's not been made too easy for them, but it's also not been made too hard for them. So I think this is actually going to be interesting. We'll see which one of these players can step up in a situation like this. You'd imagine that they're going to have a lot of adrenaline going through them, being able to be named in the starting lineup. I think I would be. But yes, if you were to play in front of the home crowd and you're named to the starting lineup, that would be even better because you have the home crowd behind you and you're feeling really pumped up for it. But these are some of the best that we have from the academy. Mikey Moore is our own generational next Harry Kane to a degree where he's just that highly rated, that highly talented, and is so young. And then Lancashire is kind of in the mold of a Harry Kane, literally, in the way that he sort of moves about the pitch and the way that he's built and the way that he even plays as a striker is very similar. So I just think these are the two of the best that we could have picked for a game like this. And we know how good they can be. We know how good they are. So to a degree, I rate them, and I think they should be able to handle this just fine. My only concern is, like I said, is technically someone like Timo Werner, I think could not really help them out too much. Let's hope he has a good game, and I've proven wrong, but I would prefer that maybe they play alongside, in an ideal world, maybe a more experienced player that can actually help them out and provide them more chances. Whereas I think Timo Werner, if he has a bad game, would detract from them, and we would have to rely on these guys to actually score the goals, create the chances, and that can be a bit hard to do. But for the most part, Dave, I think they'll handle it just fine, and this is going to be a huge learning experience for them. This is how you become a professional footballer. You have to travel away from home, go to these obscure places, and put out a good performance on a pitch that you're not used to, with conditions you're not used to, and this is kind of, learning the rules of the trade.
And they've got an away trip to Turkey coming up. If they think that's hostile, in Hungary, wait until they reach Turkey. I've heard players that have gone out there, English-based players that have gone out there, and, if they lose again, they can't come out of the stadium, for hours. Sometimes they have to ring the missus and say, look, I can't leave, I'll be home tomorrow morning. It's true, go and listen.
Bunking down in the changing room.
So if they can't stand up to this atmosphere tonight, then, I wouldn't be playing them against Galatasaray. But one thing I will say is I do think, you know, some of the players we're bringing through do have a good mentality to sustain what they did over the course of last season. And, you know, I think it's the first 10 or the first 16 teams of the league that go into the knockout phases. They didn't have to sustain that win and won at all competition, but they did, which shows a very good mentality in general of some of these players. And hopefully, I think, you know, they should surprise a lot of people today. Look, I don't think they're going to be bothered about the atmosphere. I think they're just going to be chomping at the bit to get out there and prove their worth, to be brutally honest with you. And look, I would say there's a lot more hostile, intimidating places they could go and make their debut. I get it, you know, the hungry fans going to make it intimidating, but score once or twice inside the first 10 minutes, that shut them up, you know, very, very quickly. So hopefully that's the case. But big up RST, really appreciate the support, guys. But look, guys, very interesting times ahead. I absolutely cannot wait for kickoff now that the lineup as is named. Bit of freshness in there. Mikey Moore, Will Lancashire. I cannot wait. That will be kicking off in about 15 to 20 minutes time. So guys, make sure you get back and join us for all the fun. That would be absolutely brilliant. Big night ahead for these Tottenham youngsters. Thank you to everybody who has tuned in. I really appreciate the support. You know, started at half 2 today. Question many years, probably sacking off your job a little bit to listen in. Really do appreciate that. Do not get me wrong. And love the commitment. So I appreciate that. Big up, Ollie, as well. I know I owe you a phone call. I did say earlier on, I've just had a lot going on, but I will get round to getting back to you, my man. Good to see you driving home from work. And a massive thank you to everyone who smashed the like, smashed the subscribe button. And then people who's gone the extra mile, Jacob Anderson, Paul, Artist T, Kevin with the 20 memberships, absolutely colossal. Really appreciate that, Kevo. We've got Shem Tam, Moondog, Dark Sun G as well. And then we've got Dermatron here as well. Sorry about today, lads. Come on, you Spurs. Don't apologise, Dermo. Just get ready for the game, my man. The youngsters are going to lead the bandwagon into Europe, my man. So get ready and enjoy it. And please, people, get over it. We did put the link in there for Dermo. Get over and smash that subscribe button. Guys, that's it from us. See you in 15, 20 minutes time. Oh, when the Spurs go marching in.
Oh, when the Spurs go marching in.